Итак, очередная айдаховская часть. Надеюсь, это будет последняя часть, потому что ивент я уже выполнил, и глобальный ивент уже тоже выполнен, и индивидуальный, и глобальный, но осталась одна маленькая деталь в Айдахо, которую я сегодня и хочу сделать. Все. Погнали в светлое будущее.
Yes, welcome everyone to the Fantasy 606 podcast for the last time this season. Game week 38 plus has been and gone. The final scores are in, and shortly it will be time to announce the winner of one of the most sought-after trophies in world sport. We will dot all the I's and we'll cross all the T's for you. We'll discuss what we've learned during an epic season in which 6,176 of you entered the Fantasy 606 League. And actually, Chris and Statman Dave, I think it is fair to say our eventual winner wouldn't have been able to get there, wouldn't have been able to claim the title without the invaluable advice he has picked up along the way from your good self. So in a way, I see it as a victory for all of us, really, Chris.
Can I just pick you up on the world sport comparison, Brooke? It's not a sport, is it? It's not a sport.
Okay. Do you want me to re-record the intro?
No. I like how keen you are, but I just wanted to put you right that that wasn't.
Okay. So to announce the winner of one of the most sought-after trophies in world games, in the world, trophies in the world. Yeah.
Which it is, but it's not a sport.
Dave, are you happy to take a bit of kind of reflected glory for our? I can't give you the winner's name yet. I'm going to do that in a second. But do you think I imagine actually in his acceptance speech, I would have thought he would give you a mention.
I think he's going to, something along the lines of everything Dave said. I kind of ignored and went against the opposite. I think that was a good strategy through this season. And congratulations, it's a marathon. It really is a marathon, fantasy football, and to be committed for 38 weeks, fair play. And the restart, he's got through the restart. He's powered through the end. A great display, a really good display.
Bruce, I've enjoyed Dave's paranoia the longer the season's gone on.
I think Dave's a little bit worried about his contract not getting renewed, but I think we could quash those fears right here, Dave. That people love you. They love your advice.
I'm shocked.
Come on, Come on. I have some good news for all of us today. So each one of us can have a pat on the back before we get to the overall winner, okay? So, Chris, for you have finished above both me and Dave in the head-to-head league this season by taking Micah Richards down in a tight battle on the last day of the season.
I thought I was losing.
You were, but you won 57-54 when the final scores came in. You won.
Really?
So you finished ahead of me and Dave in the head-to-head.
Oh, wow. That's big, isn't it? That's
massive.
Is it up there with winning the Premier League? That's big, though. You two are seasoned players, aren't you?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's good news, and it deserves a massive pat on the back for you and your assistant manager.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see about that.
Okay, Dave, do you want your little bit of good news?
Nah, I'm all right. We'll skip it, Ali.
There he goes, Bruce.
Okay. How can you? This is like proper 101 politics. This. What can you pull out of it statistically to pretend that?
No,
Dave,
Dave,
don't be like that.
Come on,
Come on. Do you know what?
It's defeatist. I'm getting out of my system for the new season. It's gone.
Once we get rid of COVID-19, Bruce, I'm going to give Dave a hug. He needs a hug, doesn't he?
He does. He definitely does. We need to build him back up again. Dave, your bit of good news today is that you have won July's Manager of the Month award to win your 5th Manager of the Month award of the season, which is miles ahead of me and Chris. We only won 2 each.
How did I manage that? Sensational. I didn't even realise that was coming.
You managed 68 points in the last game week of the season. I got 62, but I had to take 4 off because I made a double transfer, and Chris managed 57, so it meant that you snuck ahead and became July's Manager of the Month.
That is brilliant. Well done, Dave.
Exactly. And the good news for me...
Thank you. Look, fair play. I didn't even realise. I thought you hammered me this month, Ali.
5 awards, Dave. 5 Manager of the Month awards, yet still finishing 91 points behind me. That doesn't quite make sense, does it? But
inconsistencies that need to be addressed, I think.
So the good news for me, obviously, is that I hammered you both in the overall season, and we'll just leave that.
Well done, Ollie.
Good.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Dave.
What else are we talking about on the pod?
Right, let's get to the overall winner, because that's the proper stuff, okay? So I'm going to give you, if you remember from last week's pod, Tom Russell was our leader. Now, Tom Russell was the chap who came into the game quite late. I think he spotted an opportunity. He spied the trophy. He saw there was a prize on offer. He had a good score going, and he joined late.
You can't say that. That was his reasoning.
But, Chris, if you remember, our leader at the time, our Norwich fan, Paul Webb, actually complained about his entry, and I think it is something we're going to need to look at for next season. I think you will have to enter by a certain game week. Don't you think we might need to look at that as a rule for next season?
We'll have a committee meeting.
Yeah. We'll have a democratic vote, Ollie, and this time we've got to stick to it.
Yeah,
little
good
dictated
point,
by,
Dave,
right?
because when we've voted previous, hasn't been swung to.
Okay, so Tom Russell
on its head.
Tom Russell took a 2-point lead into the final game week of the season, and the people we had a closest eye on as challengers were Michael Dury. And Chris, what did you say about Michael? You said the jury was out. You said the jury was out on Michael. But the one we had a real keen eye on, 5th place, was Jeremy Lucas, because he was the one who had his free. And Dave, you said last week, don't play it, because you heard his team and you liked his team, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is good.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, go on then.
I know. I think we looked at his team, and then at the end of the pod, I think we came to the conclusion that.
Hang on, there's no we in this.
Right,
There's no we in this, Dave.
I think you mentioned maybe changing the keeper Patricio to Patricio. You mentioned a couple of possible tinkers, but not much, Dave. Not
Yeah,
much.
it was Harry Kane in. That was a big one.
Okay, basically, the nuts and bolts are
Burnley defender.
What happened, Bruce? The nuts and bolts.
this is the
Dave
point.
said don't change.
Yeah, Jeremy Lucas played the free hit, and he got the biggest score of those three in the game week. He got 87 points, but the question is, was it enough? The answer is no. He finished third. He finished third on 2,491 points. Tom Russell, who took the lead into the final game week of the season, scored 69 points, which meant that Michael Dury needed to beat him by 3 points to win the title. Michael Dury scored 74 points to win the title by 3 and reached the mark of 2,500 points. He hauled him in on the last day of the season, and Chris is now lifting the Fantasy 606 trophy. And Chris, that belongs to Michael Dury. Congratulations.
The jury was out. The jury comes in. Bruce, let's hope he doesn't live too far. Bruce from Norfolk because of the postage.
I've spoken to him, Chris. I've spoken to him, and I think, we'd have loved to have get him on the pod today, but he's so busy with the media commitments. He's been absolutely bombarded, having won the title.
Today? Where is he?
So he's down on the south coast, and he's on holiday with his family, but he's mixing a bit of work and holiday. So he's actually managed this team while bringing up 1-year-old twins, which is also remarkable. What I love about him,
where's his priorities?
Yeah.
If I was his missus.
What I love about him is he needed some good news. He's a Charlton fan, so this is a real exactly. Poor old Charlton, having been relegated on the last day of the season. So this has given him something back. I can tell you, he finished 37th in the world with that score. The lovely thing in terms of the Fantasy 606 podcast, guys, is he started listening to us from the very first pod of the season. He listens to us while he's out running, and he tends to listen to 4 or 5 podcasts back to back. So he stores them up while he goes out running.
Slowly?
He must do.
Or does he run a long way?
Actually, that's a really good point, because
distance that
they last 45 minutes, don't they? So if you do 4
hours on marathon.
He's running marathons, isn't he? Okay, I should have questioned him on that. And the other thing, which I think is the best bit, is that he never
business for 30 years.
He never held the lead. He never held the lead until the final day of the season. So at the end of every single game week. So at certain points, Dave, during game weeks, he was in front. But at the end of every single game week, he was never in front until the final day of the season. How about that?
Mentality, saving his chips to the end.
Yeah.
And can I just say, bearing in mind he listened to the pod from the first episode, fair play to him, because after the first episode, I really wouldn't have listened. Well, remember the first one, and then Dave came in and
Dave wasn't.
And actually, in terms of influences, I won that league. So I won something this year. So I went back and I listened to my predictions, and I can hardly speak. I
Dave
basically
missed
lost
the
my
first
voice.
one because he had a sore throat.
I lost my voice. Honestly, I'll send you this video. It's like gone. Can hardly talk.
But actually, I mean, if you think about that, having listened to that first one, our bosses might have said, you know what, that is a load of rubbish. We'll can it. We're not even going to have that as a pod.
You guys saved it. You saved it.
So we were lucky, Dave. We were lucky that you arrived in the second week. And
got to question the bosses, really.
Wow.
The Fantasy 606 podcast with Alistair Bruce Ball, Chris Sutton, and Statman Dave.
Let's do our head-to-head league next, just to get all the scores on the doors done. So Chris had that dramatic 57-54 win over Mike.
I'm going to go and sit on the sofa behind me whilst you go through this, Ali.
So what that means is that Chris finishes third in the head-to-head league on 33 points.
So you know what, Bruce? I don't want to talk about myself, but that is some achievement, really, isn't it?
It's brilliant. 11 wins, 7 defeats from your 18 games.
Okay, where did you
Chris.
finish?
Yeah, that's disappointing. That I finished 8th out of 10, and the only 2 I finished above were the 2 that had basically given up, Tanzo and Darren and Jermaine.
It's not great.
So head-to-head has been very poor for me. This week I got done by Statboy. Took me down 71 points to 58. Dave, you took on the champion this week, John Akers, and you said you were going to give him a hell of a beating.
I wasn't playing this week, Ali.
Well, you played your bench boost.
Yeah, I clicked it, didn't I?
He beat you 86-68.
We'll see you next season.
Steve Crossman, excellent since lockdown, beat Darren Fletcher at a humdinger 85-82. And actually, in the battle of the bottom feeders, Tanzo snuck it against Darren and Jermaine, 55-53. So your final head-to-head table in Fantasy 606, John Akers, old big head, wins it on 42 points. 14 wins.
Well done,
14 wins out of 18 games. You got to applaud that. Yeah. Steve Crossman second with 37 points. Chris Sutton third with 33. Statman Dave fourth, tumbled from top at the break to fourth, 31 points.
Just to reflect on that, just looking back at my games, I lost to Tanzo.
Yeah, it can happen. I did that as well. Statboy, the little fella, the really little fella, finished fifth.
How do you feel about him beating you, Bruce?
I'm delighted, Chris. I'm delighted. It means he's learning.
You're not delighted. That would annoy me if one of my sons beat me in anything.
Nah, that tone, that's a fake tone. That.
I mean, at least I'm able to.
Let's be real.
At least I'm able to play against him. I don't need him to help me put my team together, which Chris does.
Yeah, but you don't want your son to beat you at anything. I remember my lads when I played them at badminton once, and they were winning. I had to threaten them.
No, I've not gone that route. Statboy fifth with 30 points. Darren Fletcher, 27 points, the same as Micah. Mike had a little recovery at the end of the season, despite being taken down by Chris. Those two finished on 27. Me on 21. 7 wins, 11 defeats. 11 defeats. It's almost as bad as Manchester
you crow
United.
so much, don't you?
Yeah, close.
I'm not bothered about the head-to-head, Chris, though. Not bothered about that. Nick Tanner, 15 points, and Darren and Jermaine, I can't remember their last win. 9 points. So.
They won't be back. That's my prediction. They won't be back. But you know what? We should relegate them anyway.
Well, do we invite them back for giving up for a performance like that? It's not good enough, is it? You're better than that, really. You should be better than that. So, finally, just before we do all the analysis of the season, your overall scores in amongst us, basically. So Darren and Jermaine will feature in this because I think it's important we do give their final score, because I think just for the records that needs to be noted, okay? So, I scored 2,283 points, which had me 332nd in the Fantasy 606 League and just outside the top 70,000 in the world, okay? Statboy ended up 13 points behind me. Inside the world's top 100,000 with that result.
Rookie of the year for me.
Lovely. Rookie of the year. He'll absolutely love that. Dave, you finished 91 points behind me in the end, so you did manage to avoid the embarrassing 100 plus. You finished 1,200th in the Fantasy 606 League. What I've actually worked out, though, guys, with our finishes is the equivalent if we were in the Premier League. So in the Premier League, I effectively would have probably finished second if you kind of reduce it all down. Dave, that would have had you in the top 4. That would have been Champions League football for you.
Well done, Dave.
Would have whipped it in, I imagine. Cheers, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chris, you finished on 2,080 points, so you broke the 2,000 barrier in your first season as a fantasy manager. You were 2,742nd in the Fantasy 606 League, just outside the top 1 million in the world, and I've got you as the equivalent of 9th place in the Premier League. So not Europe, but I tell you what, I mean, that's like coming up, that's like Norwich finishing 9th this season.
That's like Sheffield United, isn't it?
Chris.
Yeah, that's who you are. That's exactly who you are.
Yeah.
You're Sheffield United.
Just to give you the
like
stats,
that
Chris, you're in the top 15% of players.
Wow.
That doesn't surprise me. And had I not had my assistant this season, I would have even finished higher.
True.
No, you'd have finished lower.
Yeah, top 5%.
Lower. Without Ollie, lower. And Darren and Jermaine, just to I had to scroll quite a way down for this. So they finished with 1,798 points. If you remember the chat they gave it after game week 2, I think it was, after their massive score, we're coming for you, we're going to overhaul you, top 100, here we come. 5,501st in Fantasy 606, outside the top 4 million in the world. And if you think 2 million of those have given up, haven't they? And sadly for them, the equivalent of 18th place in the Premier League. So that's relegation. They're gone. So those are the scores on the doors. Let's have a little look at game week 38 plus, the final game week of the season. Your average score for the game week. And Dave, you said to us right at the start of the season, didn't you, that you've always got to look to be beating the average.
He wasn't on the pod
obviously
at the start of the season.
His first bit of advice, though, I think, Chris, was don't miss your first pod of the season, and then after that, make sure you're above the average score. So the average score was 60 in the last game week. Dave scored 68, above average.
Well done, Dave.
I scored
Chris.
58, below average. Chris scored 57, below average.
Unlucky, Chris.
Thanks,
Kevin
Dave.
Kevin De Bruyne was the top individual scorer with 19 points in a 5-0 win against Norwich. Chris, you had him in your team, but you captained David Silva. You went emotional.
Yeah, and do you know what? And this is my beef this week, Bruce, because this is what has upset me about you and Dave to some extent, but you especially, in that David Silva has been one of the greatest players to ever grace the Premier League, and as a mark of respect, what I did in my final week is say, there you go, David Silva. That's what I think of you as a player and a person. You are a genius. So I'm going to show my respect to you, David Silva, by giving you the captaincy. And I looked at your team, Bruce.
Yeah.
Where was he? It's all about the frenzy, isn't it, with you? It's all about winning, isn't it? And that sums you up as a person. No respect, out of order. Wrong, Bruce.
Say
sorry.
I couldn't have said that better myself, Chris. I completely agree with all those statements. Terrible. I had David Silva in my team as a mark of respect.
Absolutely.
You had him in your team,
sorry
didn't
to
you,
David
Dave?
Silva.
Yeah, right
Did
now.
you captain him, Dave? Did you show your respect by captaining him?
I had him. He was vice captain.
I'm annoyed with Dave.
Nowhere near yours,
really,
was he?
But Chris, why do I owe it? Why do I owe it to David Silva to put him in my fantasy team? I don't.
Because
amazing.
he's been one of the greatest players, Bruce.
Yeah, but okay,
he's been an artist.
stick Leighton Baines in. Stick Leighton Baines in, Chris. Why is Leighton Baines not
comparing Leighton
retired?
Baines to David Silva?
Well, in terms of service to
Bruce.
one club, he's been an incredible performer.
But not the same players. There's a David Silva, beautiful player, Bruce. Just show a bit of respect, Bruce. But it's not.
Well, I'll tell you, our family did.
It's all about the points, isn't it?
Our family did, because Statboy played him. Statboy had David Silva in. So the Bruce Ball family, did.
Yeah, but so your son is showing you the way? Should it not be the other way round?
Terrible.
Probably should, Chris. Probably should.
Yeah.
Just say sorry to David Silva.
Sorry, David. Really sorry. And I won't get a chance now to. I won't get a chance. I won't get a chance to right that wrong.
I think you should tweet him. At David Silva, I am sorry for not putting you in my team as a mark of respect.
Chris, I play fantasy football with my head, not my heart. I'm a manager and I'm trying to get the best result for my team, and it's not about the emotions for me.
The Tin Man.
Right.
What? Who was that? Wizard of Oz?
He didn't have a heart. Tin Man didn't have a heart. Yeah.
the
But who
Tin
didn't have it? You're the
Man,
Scarecrow
Bruce.
then. You didn't have a brain.
What does that make?
And Dave's the lion who lacks courage.
Lacks courage.
Dear.
Lacks courage.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if we're gonna
Good,
go Wizard of Oz,
But
Wizard of Oz.
I can't lack courage if I literally went for the differentials for the last 2 game weeks, Bruce. That shows real courage.
No,
Passion.
I don't think it does though, Dave. I think
Heart.
you were just in a corner there and you were lashing out. But just to go back to the game week, Jurgen Klopp messed things about a bit because he didn't start with Trent. What are you laughing at, Chris? He didn't start with Trent Alexander-Arnold, Salah or Mane, so that messed a few people up. There were only 3 clean sheets in the game week: Manchester City, Manchester United and Chelsea. Here's one for you, Dave, and this will annoy you, and I know I'm annoying both of you today. If you'd kept your free hit, right,
Come on.
for the last week of the season and played this team I'm about to read out to you and captained Kevin De Bruyne, this would have got you 153 points. So would you have caught me? You would have almost caught me with this team. De Gea in goal, Kyle Walker,
Yeah, never putting De Gea in goal.
Marcus Alonso and Kieran Tierney as a back 3, De Bruyne, Mount, Fernandes and Grealish as a midfield 4, Aubameyang, Shea Adams and Josh King. Now, it's very unlikely you would have put all those players together, but had you done so and captained De Bruyne, it would have got you 153 points. Unfortunately, Dave, you did play one of your chips. You played your bench boost, and I was looking at your subs. Between the 4 of them, they managed 3 points. Hugo
Isn't
Lloris
it-
got 2, James Tarkowski got 1, and Bukayo Saka and O'Connell didn't play.
Bench
Which is
droop, wasn't it,
interesting.
really?
Builds on to another point.
Yeah.
But the week before, I got 18 points on my bench.
Ifs, buts and maybes, Dave.
So it will lead us to a conversation about improving fantasy football later, Ali. I do imagine.
Okay, all right, I like that. Store that. I actually brought Kieran Tierney in, which was inspired. It cost me 4 points, but got me 11. Who
I had
cares?
him in that first team where I had 12 Arsenal players. Remember the first lot?
Yes, I do.
Wildcard team.
I think you were right, Bruce. Who cares?
Who cares? Who cares? Let's do an overall quick review of the season. Chris, as our debut manager this season in fantasy football, what do you think is the biggest lesson that you have learnt about the game and going into next season that you can then use?
Trust or lack of trust. That's
Funny.
it.
I had a funny
That's
feeling you were
it,
going to say
Bruce.
that.
Well, not trusting you.
Who, me or me
Simple
and Dave?
as that.
Or just me?
You in big letters and Dave in brackets, because I did get advice, which he then went back to himself, didn't he?
Yeah. Well,
Just
I
the
tell you
other
what,
week, which is the definition of hypocrisy.
talking about that, and I know a lot of people will have listened to the pod throughout the whole season, but I thought it was worth looking this up. So, right at the start of the season, Chris, you went with a Liverpool back 3, didn't you? You had Trent Alexander-Arnold, Andrew Robertson, and Virgil van Dijk. And
And
for the
I
first,
remember Dave tweeting that was a really good idea. Maybe did it on his Twitch channel and on his YouTube channel as well. Mentioned that.
yeah, his
Thanks for the
Twitch,
plugs,
yeah.
Chris. Good work.
And for the first few weeks of the season, Liverpool weren't keeping clean sheets. And you said, I'm going to stick with it. I'm loyal. I like this. It's going to come good. And Dave and I were constantly at you saying, just take one of them out. You've got to change it. And eventually we sort of persuaded you into taking Virgil van Dijk out. Dave, at the end of the season, if you look at the top defenders in the game, the top 3 scores by the defenders, Trent Alexander-Arnold,
Don't do
210,
Don't
Andrew
do this,
Robertson,
Bruce.
181, and Virgil van Dijk, 178. They were the top 3 in the game, Chris. So that's your point about trust, isn't it? That's your point about
Hang
trust.
your heads, the pair of you, in shame. Really? Come on.
Well, I would say, Dave, and I think you'll back me on this, had Chris continued to put all that money at the back end of the team, he wouldn't have been able to, say, have Harry Kane, for example, or, it would have cost him at the other end of the pitch. So there's no guarantee with having those 3 in that he would have scored better this season.
Don't try and worm your way out of this, Bruce. You know
What do you think,
did.
Dave? What do you
This
think, Dave?
season, there's been quite a lot of good cheap midfielders and attackers. So I honestly think it could have been a really good strategy. And I can only apologise. I think it generally would. You're thinking Greenwood's come in. You got Saka in there that would have had a little bit of period of being like 4.5 mil. And then I think Adama Traore is another good cheap midfielder. I think Christian Pulisic would have been a good cheap midfielder. Forward Danny Ings would have been good. I think we made a mistake. I think if Chris had backed that for the full season.
So actually, Chris, trust yourself. Actually, that's the answer.
Yeah.
Can I just
trust
say,
yourself?
Just hang on there. Thank you for the apology, Dave.
Won't do it. I try not to do it again, Chris. It was poor advice. I don't want to give that on this show.
I wasn't waiting for you to
good
speak
advice.
there, Dave.
I'm not apologising.
Thank you. Thank you for the apology, Dave.
There's no need to apologise to you for that, Chris.
So you're not apologising?
No, because the advice was
That
given.
sums you up, doesn't it?
The
And
advice
that's
was
my David Silver argument as well.
David Silver. The advice was given. The advice was given genuinely, and because we thought it was the right thing to do, and then it was up to you to act on that advice. And if you thought it was wrong, you shouldn't have taken our advice. We're not experts. Well, Dave is. I'm not. Dave, what was your biggest mistake this season?
COVID-19.
Yeah, but that wasn't your mistake. What really do you think?
I think that really cost me because I was absolutely flying. I was so in touch with my fantasy team, it was a joke. Like, I was in such good... Ali, I'm catching you if that doesn't stop. 100%.
He knows that.
I absolutely
so
had you on the ropes.
Had COVID not happened, you would have caught me.
I was flying. Look at my scores in the months. I went up and up and up and up and up.
So what's but
strategy
what,
I had planned.
Okay, so what physically happened then post lockdown that didn't enable you to carry that on?
My issue is I need like a sample size of games. Like, I was rubbish. The first 13 games, rubbish. Look at the Ali. Look at the scores.
Okay. Here we go.
So my problem, I think, what I need to do is be a little bit more like Chris and be like, bang, stick with stuff.
The Fantasy 606 podcast with Alistair Bruce Ball, Chris Sutton, and Statman Dave.
Well, that's it for Fantasy 606. If you've enjoyed that last half an hour, you can catch the full podcast on BBC Sounds. And coming up next on 5 Live is Colin Murray. That's after the 5 Live news.
On digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
With the 5 Live News, I'm Shojo Saka. The Foreign Office is now advising against all non-essential travel to the Balearic and Canary Islands, as well as mainland Spain, after a rise in coronavirus cases there. The updated guidance confirms that people who have been on holiday anywhere in Spain will have to self-isolate for 2 weeks on their return, with no exceptions for islands such as Ibiza and Tenerife. The Spanish government has urged the UK to reconsider. Senior police officers say they're concerned by figures which show young men from ethnic minority groups were twice as likely to be fined for breaching coronavirus laws as young white men. The National Police Chiefs Council said forces in England and Wales are looking to see what can be done to mitigate consistent violence. Government plans to curb advertising on unhealthy food will damage the economy. Ministers have come up with a series of measures to tackle obesity, including a ban on buy one get one free deals on junk food. BBC Sport has learned that Newcastle United's proposed takeover by a Saudi Arabian-backed consortium has been delayed because of a lack of clarity over who would be in charge at the club. 16 weeks after documents relating to a £300 million takeover were registered with the Premier League, the deal is still being scrutinised under its owners and directors test. Fulham have taken control of their Championship playoff semi-final after winning the first leg 2-0 away at Cardiff. Brighton have completed the signing of midfielder Adam Lallana from Liverpool on a free. Heavy rain prevented any play on the fourth day of the third and final test between England and the West Indies at Old Trafford. The home side remain strong favourites to go on and win the series 2-1. The tourists have been such an unlikely 399 to win. They'll resume on day 5 and 10 for 2. And Johanna Konta has withdrawn from next week's Palermo Ladies Open, which will be the first WTA Tour event since March. The world number 14 plans instead to play a number of singles matches at this week's Battle of Brits Team Tennis to get back into a competitive space.
This is an important message for anyone who has a free over 75 TV licence. From the 1st of August, unless you receive pension credit, you will need to pay for your TV licence. But you don't need to do anything until TV licensing writes to you. Starting in August, they'll be sending letters about the different ways you can pay and how to apply for a free licence if you have pension credit. It's easy and you can do everything from home. If you've already applied for a free licence, you will be receiving it soon. For more information, go to tvl.co.uk/age.
Colin Murray, Monday to Wednesday night on 5 Live.
Hello everybody, how you doing? By the time this show ends, Monday will be well and truly over. That is never a bad thing, but a lot to get through before Tuesday arrives. At midnight tonight, the lock-in will be here. We'll be chatting with Jake Yap, Neil Delamere, Gráinne Maguire. We've got live music from the Mercury Music Prize nominated sports team and poetry from the amazing Holly McNish. Some news stories to start us off shortly, and after 11, I Need You. We're going to talk to some of the key players behind the most iconic music venues in the UK. Without them, there would be nowhere for the bands and artists we know and love to cut their teeth and then plough that path to fame and glory, and then ultimately, of course, addiction, fallout, rehab, reforming and yoga. But you know what I mean. COVID-19 has hit these venues so hard, so we're going to look at that. But after 11, I also want your stories. Those magic moments when you see a band or an artist play a small venue and they go on to be huge and you've dined out on it ever since. So we're going to have a real conversation after 11, a celebration of how important live music is, but also look at the story, which is quite... that discussion. I'd love to have you, and you can even call 08085 909 693. You know the number, 08085 909 693. We'll get to that after 11, but I thought just before we started we could just really set up why it's so important, and a man who can give us a real overview on this is the CEO of the Music Venue Trust. His name's Mark David and he joins us now. How you doing, Mark?
How are you doing?
Thanks for kicking off the show. Just what is the state of play at the moment? Because there are some venues right on the edge of oblivion and others who have said quite clearly we're going to need help soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very, very serious situation for ever since March, really. But we have some venues who've actually temporarily closed down, and then we've managed to find some people to rescue those ones. We're working on a couple in Hull at the moment. There's some good news coming out of Manchester just recently, with Deaf Institute and Gorilla being saved. But I mean, the truth is that 93% of these venues are very close to being closed down permanently, and we need to get some emergency grants and support out to them.
The latest story is, of course, that there's over £1.5 billion going to the arts. Now, there's just over £2 million being released now to go to venues who are at that stage where they're going to go out of business, like about 150 in particular being targeted. How far will that go, and is that really just the tip of the iceberg?
I'm afraid it is the tip of the iceberg. Yeah, you hit it straight on the head there. This is going to prevent closures through until the 30th of September. But we really do need that big pot of money you mentioned released soon. And we need to make sure that it's getting out to these grassroots music venues right across the country. And we're hoping that's going to be announced sometime this week and we can get started on the big piece of work that needs doing.
And here's the economics of it. This isn't about making sure that there's a basement for a whole load of new bands that have formed to play in. The top end of this machine provides billions every year to our economy. So while the small venues are just one tiny little cog of that engine, the engine doesn't work without them, Mark.
Well, it's like a pyramid, I mean, if you take away the grassroots music venues, you're literally removing the bottom layer of that pyramid. The more of it gets removed, the more shaky pyramid you've got. For every one Coldplay or Adele or Stormzy that we produce, we need a massive pyramid at the bottom, a place where people can enter, they can start their careers. Some of them get all the way to the top of the pyramid, some of them only make it up one level, some of them stay where they are. Some of these events are just the one-off time that band got together, had a really amazing time with their friends, their family. It's just such an important part of who we are as a nation, as who we are as communities.
Well, we're going to go up and down the nation tonight, because we can all think of any town and there can be a venue. I could say to you now, Brighton, and we'd say, Concord, or we could say Bristol, and we'd just go about the Louisiana, which is in trouble. Mine's the Limelight in Belfast, the 100 Club in London. I've been to so many times. We're going to talk to the man who runs that a little bit later on in the show. But this is the beating heart of our music scene, isn't it? Because every town has its legendary venue.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're talking about all the stories that happen. They all need places to happen. All these venues, and we've had such a tough time with them in the last 20 years. 35% have closed down in the last 20 years. If you look at something like the first Oasis tour, legendary tour of the UK, when they broke big, there were 25 dates on that tour. There are 9 of those venues left. all 9 of those venues are now under threat of closure.
Yeah.
We'd be left with none at all that hosted that first legendary tour of Oasis across the UK. We can't face that as a nation. We have to do more. We have to act quickly, save these venues, and then hopefully we can get back to normal at some point in the future.
What can music fans do? We're going to celebrate these venues later. We're going to look at individual cases of venues that are right on the edge and what they're doing to survive. But are we quite redundant as fans? Can we put pressure on in any way?
Well, no, absolutely not. The fans are the one thing that's kept these venues going, frankly. We launched a campaign in April called Save Our Venues, and so far it's raised £2.5 million. All of that has come from fans. It's come from people who love these venues. We're still running that campaign. You know, you've mentioned this money that's being released now. That's going to help some of these venues, but it isn't going to help them all. There's still more we need to do. We need to get to the point where this big pot of money is released, and the pressure that can come from fans is we need to make sure that money gets out to our grassroots music venues. We know it's going to save our big national institutions. Of course they're going to do that, but your local venue matters to you. Your local community needs a music venue. Support.
Mark, without local community football clubs, there's no breeding ground to create the stars of tomorrow. Without these music venues, there's no platform, there's no stage, pardon the pun, for them to make enough money, because 70 people turned up to see them, to cut their first demo that got them signed to the record label, that made them play to 500, that made them play to 5,000, that made them headline the Pyramid stage at Glastonbury. I know you've been in direct contact with the government. Do you feel that there's a recognition that the arts is as much the sticky floor and the low roof of the legendary local music club as it is a theatre?
Well, we feel fairly confident now. You know, we've got it all correct. We feel we put a very strong message out to government as early as we could. We've been listened to. We've worked with great people at DCMS, Department for Culture, Media and Sport. We're working with great people at Arts Council England. We think there's an opportunity here, but honestly, until it's over the line, I'm a very cautious person. You know, I want to make sure that this lands. I want to make sure that exactly what you described there. If there's no music venue in your town, how would you be inspired to pick up a guitar or pick up a laptop and start writing your songs? If you don't see it around you, what inspires you to become the next Ed Sheeran or the next Ellie Goulding or whatever else it is that anybody listening to this show likes? You need inspiration. We need it to be right in front of people. There must be opportunities for young people to start careers, and those opportunities always happen in grassroots music venues.
It's really important. It goes from the first guitar picked up all the way to those bands who've sold millions of records around the world. It's all on the same road. It's so important. It's in such trouble, and we're going to talk about it from 11 o'clock tonight. Thank you so much, Mark, for setting it up.
Thank you so much for doing this.
And I'm really excited already just during that chat with Mark. We've had loads of texts coming in. 85058. You know the phone number? You know the one. I don't need to repeat it again. I keep forgetting the phone number. But the text is 85058. So my name, John in Durham, says, as my wife has pointed out, I never tire of informing folk who say how great OK Computer in Rainbow the Bends are, that I saw Radiohead at a pub in Leeds, the Duchess of York supporting Sultans of Ping. That's unbelievable, John. Might have to get you on the phone a little bit later, because why, there's a really important story here. I just think the heart of it is all of those memories. It's the, for all the stats in the world, that is the thing that tells us so much, that we need to make sure we protect these wonderful places. Neil says, I saw the Manic Street Preachers at the Riverside, Newcastle in 1989. They were just starting out. Richie was with them then too. At the end of the gig, they just jumped off the front of the stage and chatted at the bar with about the 40 people who were there. I remember talking to Nicky Wire, really nice lads, I'll never forget it. Nicky, I can tell you, is genuinely one of the nicest human beings on the planet. He wasn't just having a good night. So many of those stories, and you know what? Be as smug as you like. There's something, the smugness, you could smell it off those texts. 85058. We come back to it at 11 o'clock. I'm so lucky that in just a few minutes from now we're going to once again be able to pick the brain of the brilliant Sir Michael Marmot, who has led yet another study connected to COVID-19, and we're going to talk to him. Always brilliant to be in his company. But I don't know whether you've probably keeping up to date with everything that's going on with this self-isolation when you come back from Spain. Not only changed from this afternoon to today to tonight, but it's changed again in the last hour. So let's just pick up on it a little bit for a few minutes before we talk to Sir Michael. So today we now know that it's all non-essential travel to the country, and that includes the Balearic and Canary Islands. So that's the ravers screwed, right? Ibiza, they were all ready to go out. That's not happening unless you can isolate when you come back. And everyone has the same questions at the moment. We're also, there's one national newspaper's reported in the last 47 minutes that the 14-day quarantine is going to be reduced to 10. Does that make a huge difference? It might do with employers. It might make a few extra people go out. But yeah, 2 weeks quarantine as it is at the moment. That could be changing as we speak to 10 days. And Jet2 have cancelled all of its flights. All of Spain until the middle of next month. Now, Chelsea Dickinson is a travel blogger and cheap travel expert. So A, you can book my holidays if you want, and B, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you do this for a living. How confused are you, or because you do it for a living, have you got clarity on it?
Oh, absolutely not. My inbox is just pinging with these Foreign Commonwealth Office updates. I tell you what, I mean, they didn't think about doing it all in one go, did they? There's been about 4 different updates in the last week on its own. So yeah, it's a bit confusing.
And when you're talking directly to people who've been on holiday, those caught in Spain or planning to go out, what's the balance between annoyance and confusion and those that say, okay, these are unprecedented times and nothing is perfect, we understand that we don't want to see a spike here in the UK? What's the balance?
I would find that from the people who are in Spain or have just returned in the last couple of days, it is more of confusion, especially when they are reporting the fact that in Spain they appear to be taking it really quite seriously. A lot of people talking to me about you have to wear your mask, it's really compliant. Even things like having to take your shoes off before going into certain restaurants, which are cleansing the bottom of your shoes. So in all, I think the people that have been in Spain recently have just thought this seems, like a bit of overkill for when we were there and we're feeling pretty safe about what's going on at the moment.
The government would say, of course, the stats show they've got double the transmission rate at the moment, and you can't see it. So no matter how safe you feel, they would probably also say, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Act too quickly, don't act quick enough. In terms of what you do as a travel blogger, do you think as these quarantine rules come into places like Spain, do you think it's going to deter people from going on holiday full stop? Or do you think it's one of those things people crave so much they're gonna put up with it and take a gamble and book holidays?
I always talk about going on holiday as this, almost people see it as having this human right. You get to the summer, you start thinking, oh, I want to go away, I want to see some sea, some sand. And I do think that is deeply ingrained into a lot of our psyche. However, it really is going to cut people off. I myself did this too. Last week, I started to see some people, posting on Instagram, and I was getting pretty excited. I was then myself on flights to Greece, and this has kind of stopped me in my tracks, Cecil, and I know it has definitely stopped other people as we go, oh, hang on, I kind of forgot that whole quarantine aspect could come into it. And you're absolutely right in saying this. The government have never shied away from the fact that they at any point could change those rules. And, with figures going up, I can understand why we are, we want to be making the right decisions and we've got to do them quick. But I don't think people are going to be as quick to be booking those holidays if they know that they're going to have to, there's still that chance of quarantine when they get home.
Chelsea, you're absolutely right. A friend of mine is in Greece and she was like, should I come back in case, regardless of what the stats tell her right now, so it does bring in the same in other places. But again, imperfect world as it is, there is this whole push to staycation, the holiday in the UK. I'm working for 2 weeks up near Sheffield, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to get out. I'm so close to the Peak District, I'll get out in the Peak District rather than stay at the city centre.
Oh, you absolutely should.
Well, I
mean, the UK's beautiful.
No, I always do. I know the Peak District like back of my hand, Boxworth, they even call it as properly. Willie Bridge, Peak District, I love. Lake District, I love. Cotswolds, I love. But I won't stay, I'm afraid, because if everyone decides to holiday at home, there ain't enough room for that many of us. So there's a real, as you probably know, the staycation market is already chock-a-block with bookings.
It absolutely is. And what I say to people, I think a lot of people, when they're booking these kind of holidays, are going straight to the self-catering websites, Airbnb. And I say to people, it's all about wisely.net. There's some brilliant websites out there that still have properties on them. And there's a search engine that I really like called Home to Go, which kind of looks at all of the self-catering websites. That's a really good one to try it out. There will still be bits out there. I know it's going to be a bit tough as lots of people are wanting to go on their staycations. But hey, here's the idea. Why not a camper van?
Right, exactly. Freeze a bird.
Yes.
Well, you can't come anyway. You get in trouble. You can't just put up someone's drive. Randomly park outside someone's house.
Wild parking is legal in Scotland, though, so maybe avoid England, Wales. Yeah.
We know where that sort of sun is. Chelsea, thank you so much for talking to me. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Cheers. And you know those questions that you can't answer in one soundbite. Will my employer pay me? For example, if I have to isolate and come back, is my insurance valid? Go to the BBC website. All these frequently asked questions are there, and most of the answers are there's not one answer that we can give you. So there you go. Just looking through all the text coming in at the moment in terms of those amazing gigs that you went to. Another one here from Debbie in Whitley Bay. I saw the one and only Depeche Mode at Whitley Bay Ice Rink. Unbelievable. I almost saw Nordsky DJ at the Ice Rink. Seen them so many times since, but never at such an intimate venue. Who would have thought that they would have gone on a global start, still strong 30 years later? We're looking at these venues, not necessarily an ice rink, but the likes of the Leadmill and Sheffield, and you get the Joiners in Southampton. These venues are over 90% are in real trouble right now, and they're so important to the whole industry. We're going to celebrate it with your memories, and we're going to talk to some people who run them, bands themselves after 11, and celebrate their importance and majesty. So if we saw that band in a small venue, none to be huge, you know, you come on and brag about it. 85058 in the text we may bring you back. It's a good chance. It's always an honour to have Sir Michael Marmot on the show, Professor and Sir Michael Marmot, and pick his brain. So a report commissioned by TfL has found some startling stats. 34 London bus workers died of COVID-19 during the pandemic, including 29 drivers, 3.5 times the rate of other roads. And this report says that earlier lockdown would have likely saved their lives, and so much more to talk about. Sir Michael, welcome back to the show. Sir Michael, what led you to say then it was definitely the later lockdown that caused the deaths with such surety?
Well, I never say anything with complete surety, but the drivers who died all got the infection 10 days before, within 10 days before lockdown, or 10 days after. There were no fatal infections more than 10 days after lockdown. And that suggests lockdown really worked. And given that all the drivers, as I said, got their infection either 10 days before or 10 days afterwards, then imagine if we'd moved lockdown 10 days earlier. Probably most of those would not have got infected and gone on to die from COVID-19.
This was commissioned by TfL, but just using that logic, Sir Michael, more direct action earlier on, I'm assuming that would play out across most public services then, when there was confusion or maybe a lack of protection or precaution being taken?
Well, the problem, as we're now aware, is that the people who keep our society functioning, frontline workers, of whom bus drivers are an example. I mean, think about bus drivers. All those frontline workers who needed to go out to work to keep us going. Many of them had to catch the bus. So the fact that the drivers were working was actually vital to keeping society going. There were a number of actions taken by the companies that operate the buses. We were not able to evaluate the degree to which they were effective because lockdown swamped everything. We could see that after lockdown, say 10 days after lockdown, there were no more infections that went on to fatality. And so we couldn't actually evaluate whether the specific actions that were taken were effective or not. We may get a better handle on it in phase 2 of the study, but we might not.
It also found that black and minority ethnic workers were most at risk. Now, obviously, you do the research and you draw your conclusions from fact, but we've talked before surrounding about racial and social inequality, so this wouldn't have been surprising at all in terms of what you discovered with the research.
Yeah, so drivers are overly represented in the poorer parts of London and around London. They live in the more deprived areas, reflecting the fact that they're relatively lowly paid. And a high proportion of drivers are from black, Asian and minority ethnic groups. Now we know that deprived people and people from BAME groups have high mortality from COVID-19. And then there's a tricky question to sort out, which is tricky and we can't quite answer it. One of the potential reasons why BAME groups might have high mortality from COVID-19 is because they're employed in frontline occupations, security guards, driving, care homes, and the like. And one of the reasons that people in frontline occupations might have a high risk, apart from the exposure to the virus at work, is because they come from deprived backgrounds and from BAME groups. So the causation could go both ways.
Because we looked into that in detail, didn't we, when we were looking at the breakdown and the likelihood of catching it. You know, we talked about Bangladeshi families and how many live per household. But this is true, the social inequality and racial inequality, it brings about the same type of figures, and correct me if I'm wrong, whether it's COVID-19 or other reasons, other big killers. You know, there's similarities to be drawn between this research and research that you've done before, way before COVID-19.
Oh, very much so. And the figures that the Office for National Statistics have published are really quite remarkable. As we've published for years, actually decades, what you see is what I call a social gradient. In other words, classify areas by an index of multiple deprivation, and the more deprived the area, the higher the mortality. And we see that for all causes of death. Right. And we see a remarkably similar gradient for mortality from COVID-19, with some excess down the bottom. And that excess could be related to employment in frontline occupations, and it could also be related since famous studies by Professor Jerry Morris, beginning in the 1950s, when he looked at bus drivers and bus conductors on the double-decker buses, and the drivers had higher rates of heart disease than the conductors. And Jerry Morris attributed that to more exercise that the conductors got going up and down the stairs. And he also pointed out that the drivers were more likely to be overweight. And we know, it's published today, it's all being talked about, obesity. We know that being overweight or obese makes it more likely that if you get COVID-19, it will be severe. And we certainly saw hypertension in about half the death certificates we were able to examine.
You do these surveys not to create headlines, you do them because you're commissioned in it, you do it because you're a professor. Does it ever irritate you at the surprise, in inverted commas, that is received when a report comes out with COVID-19 or as we've just said, whatever it is, when you go, here, well, yeah, by the way, I repeat, people from social deprivation will die in greater numbers from this? And it's acted like it's a new headline in 2020 or in 2019 or in 2018 or in 2017.
I have talked to my colleagues and said, you know, this report we're publishing, the one today, but others as well, this isn't really news.
Yes, exactly.
And I've come to distinguish between what's new and what's news. What's news isn't always what's new. And so scientifically, we're always interested in new findings and in public health as well. But quite often, it's stories that we've known about make the news. Now, that's not all bad, because the more we can get people talking about these issues of inequalities in health, the more chance we have of something about it. Now, in the case of today's report, we were commissioned by TfL, Transport for London, because they were concerned about it. You heard Sadiq Khan say today that he's the son of a bus driver. He feels this very keenly, that if bus drivers are on the front line and are dying as a result, this is something that should concern us all. But it is rather typical of the inequalities in health that we see more generally.
Absolutely. Sir Michael, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Sir Michael Marmot, thank you. I never know, because he's a professor and a sir, and I never know what way to go. So sometimes I say Professor Sir Michael Marmot, and he must think I'm some sort of clown when I say that. But he makes a really good point when he's talking about health inequality. And I really wanted to get to that point with him after we talked about the report commission. There's so much of what he does, just it will lead to the same answer: social inequality. Social inequality. And that results in higher death numbers. Away from, when it comes to health inequality, that idea of what's new and what's news is something that gets to me a lot. I read a story today: men aged between 18 and 34 from ethnic minority groups were twice as likely to be fined for breaching lockdown coronavirus laws as young white men, figures show. And that was the same as what we're just talking about with Michael. That's not new. That's called racial inequality. That's called racial injustice. The stat doesn't surprise. That's the sad thing. So while it's great it's reported, it follows the same pattern we read time and time again, and it's changed. Coming up next, we go back inside the music venues. Thank you so much for all your texts coming in so far and your calls. We're looking at saving those music venues from extinction that are the birthplace of every great band we've ever heard. That's next.
On digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
BBC News at 11 o'clock, this is Adam Porter. The Foreign Office has updated its guidance about travelling to Spain, advising against non-essential travel to all parts of the country, including the Balearic and Canary Islands. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has described the UK's decision to reimpose the 2-week quarantine period as unfair. Downing Street warned holidaymakers that no travel was risk-free, and that the list of countries which might require quarantine measures was under constant review. Keith Neal, a professor of infectious diseases at the University of Nottingham, said the government had no choice.
Trying to stop an introduction of new chains of transmission, given what happened back in the February half-term with less travellers coming back, I think it's a very prudent step to act very quickly.
The head of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, says the COVID pandemic is easily the most severe global health emergency it's ever faced. More than 16 million cases have been reported worldwide since January. A senior government advisor has suggested that full crowds at sporting events might not be possible until next year. Pilot events have begun testing how fans can return in a socially distanced way, with 1,000 people watching a cricket match at the Oval yesterday. More trials are due to take place in snooker and horse racing later this week. Professor James Calder, who's involved in the cross-sport working group of medical experts, says it's unlikely things will return to normal until there's a vaccine.
We need to know, actually, does it matter if you're shouting? How far will those droplets spread? Because a football or a rugby match, the fans are going to be shouting and chanting and singing, I hope. And we need to be sure that the people in front of them are
Israel says it's thwarted an attack by the Lebanese militia group Hezbollah at the border between the two countries. The Israeli military says it opened fire on a group of fighters as they tried to cross into its territory. Hezbollah denies attempting to infiltrate the area. Here's our Middle East correspondent Tom Bateman.
Loud explosions were heard and smoke could be seen rising in Sheba Farms, a disputed area on the frontier between Lebanon and the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Israel says a militant squad armed with assault rifles crossed a few meters into its territory, planning to carry out an attack. Israeli troops aimed tank and gunfire at the group, who fled back towards Lebanon while exchanging fire. The border between Israel and Lebanon is combustible. A flare-up appeared inevitable after an airstrike attributed to Israel in Syria last week killed a Hezbollah fighter. Lebanon and Israel last fought a war in 2006.
The singer Denise Johnson, who performed with Primal Scream and New Order, has died. She was 56. Her family said she'd been ill in the days prior to her death. BBC News, it's 3 minutes past 11.
The flags of the nations frame a scene of intense activity on an airfield near Silverstone in Northamptonshire. Here on this British motor racing circuit, the world's leading aces, with their supercars, mobile workshops, team managers, mechanics, and all the paraphernalia which must accompany them, are preparing for the greatest of all racing. It's a great and colourful day for British motorsport.
The 70th anniversary of the British Grand Prix. Live from Silverstone this weekend on 5 Live. Colin Murray, Monday to Wednesday night on...
It's the same connection. Listen to this.
It's here. We're in the balcony yet? Let's go.
Most people, by the way, who saw Pendulum at that gig at the Brixton Academy, me included, cannot really remember it. I want you to think now, though, of that moment where you felt as one with the artist you love, no matter what type of music they made. Often in small venues as well, what makes them so magic is when the bands who started out there become mega famous, they'll often return to where it all started and create moments like this as well. But no matter what the song is, you know that moment where you really can't connect anymore with the song because it's live and the artist is in front of you. You can't smile anymore, or you can't stop a tear running down your face. That's what live music does to us. And all music, as I said, has to start somewhere. And it's in these basements, these single rooms with sticky floors and low ceilings, that all the greats are born. Rock, pop, dance, country, jazz, all music. Here's the amazing Ruby Turner, who I adore, playing to just hundreds at the legendary Ronnie Scott's, one of the greatest venues on the planet. What a voice. Tonight we are going to tell the story of where live music is at, and we're going to hear from venue owners, the bands themselves, and hopefully you too. We're looking at your stories of seeing amazing music in small venues, a band who went on to conquer the world, an intimate show, something so special that it lives with you forever, and you've talked about it ever since. That special moment. It can also be a big artist, as I've just... Well, what a guest I have to kick off tonight. His story is quite sensational. His dad sold a little jazz record store and opened up this place in Oxford Street in the centre of London called the 100 Club a long time ago, and so many bands have played there and gone on to be absolutely huge, so important to the music industry. It's absolutely legendary, and I think it's about 36 years now that the son of the man who opened that venue has been looking after the 100 Club, and Jeff Horton joins us now. Jeff, thank you so much for kicking off tonight. How are you?
Good, thanks. Yes, very good, Colin. Cheers.
Well, listen, let's start with it here and now. How hard is it, even for these iconic venues, from the Lead Mill to the 100 Club, to stay afloat during COVID, and where are you at now?
Well, I think it's going to be very, very difficult indeed. The thing that we're all looking at the moment is this support package which the government have announced last week, which I think they're going to make a further announcement about how it's being shared out sometime between tomorrow and Thursday. We're not sure how much of that support we're going to get, but I was actually on a Zoom meeting with the Secretary of State, Oliver Dowden, and the boss of Live Nation, and one or two big hitters from all forms of music, and basically we were asked by the Secretary of State how we're going to open with social distancing, and we just said it's just impossible. People can't social distance properly outside the greengrocers at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday. How are they going to do it at midnight outside the loos in a toilet at 12 o'clock when they've all had a few drinks? So and the other thing as well is economically it doesn't work, because with social distance measures of 1 metre, that reduces our capacity from 320 to 72, and that will have the same effect on all grassroots music venues regardless of their capacity. It just will. So it doesn't work for us, doesn't work for the promoter, doesn't work for the band. And also, more than anything else, social distance is the antithesis of what we do. We are social hubs by default. So the thing that I personally, and I'm just talking about me now in the 100 Club, not anyone else from grassroots music venues, but the thing that I worry about is changing the landscape forever in the future, and that, the new future becomes gigs that are socially distanced or with smaller crowds, so you don't have mosh pits, you have bands separated at a certain distance on stage, and I think that would kill what we have spent as an industry 80 years trying to perfect.
So what you're saying at the moment for Club E for Back, for the 100 Club, for King Tut's, for these iconic venues, even with the doors opening, the amount of people that can actually go in isn't going to pay the band anyway, and isn't going to pay the rent. So without the assistance,
yes,
kind of doomed.
Well, the thing is, I think it is, which is why I think the government have made this pledge to support arts right the way across the spectrum, but particularly grassroots music venues. And I think that the encouraging thing is that through people like the Music Venue Trust, grassroots music venues have suddenly become valued again. I think for a long, long time they were seen as places that were dens of iniquity, that were trouble, that were kind of, a pain in the backside a lot of the time. And I've never really understood that, because my experience is going to grassroots music venues, not just the 100 Club, but all the ones I go to socially. I've never had a bad experience, seriously, in any of them. And most of my friends I've met in places like that, the 100 Club has had people married there. People have come and had parties to celebrate their 40th, 50th anniversary where they've met people down there. I think these places do real good. And as you said, at the top of the show, the fact that, you can dine out, because you've seen, bands that have become absolutely huge. For instance, I'll give you an instant, and actually this proves how, economically important they are as well. So we put Muse on at the club in 95, I think, for 2 nights. We lost 500 quid. And I think the last time Muse played London, they did the... I think they played the O2, that's right. And I think they sold out, which is 19,000 tickets, 10 nights in a row at an average price of 100 quid. Now, this just proves, and actually when I co-wrote the report about grassroots music venues with people like Mark David and Oro at Village Underground, I did some research as my part of it. And in 2015, something like 70% of the headliners across UK festivals have played the 100 Club at some point, and that will be a similar figure though at the Adelphi Hull, at the Trades Club at Hebden Bridge, at the Joiners in Southampton. These places are massively important to the entire industry, which is worth £5.2 billion. Let's not forget that.
What did Oliver Dowden and his team, how did they react when you said, look, there's only 2 things that can happen here? You either support us or we go to the wall and we can run properly after a vaccine, basically? What was the response?
Well, I think the response was the announcement 2 weeks later of this package worth 1.57 million. Now, obviously, we've got to wait and see how that's divided up before we can say with confidence that every venue can open safely when this is over. But I'm quite confident from the conversations within that Zoom meeting that there is going to be support for grassroots music venues through probably, I would imagine, and this wasn't mentioned at the meeting, this is just my opinion, I think until probably sometime towards the end of this year.
Yeah. So 1.57 billion. So just over 2 million has been released today to go straight to grassroots venues, targeting 150 of these iconic clubs that, as you say, are the absolute bedrock and the foundation of our whole music scene and what bands go on to be. From where you are now, I suppose that is definitely much welcomed and will plug a hole in the dam. But
well, that 2.2 million is basically for venues that will not survive, who believe they won't survive until the end of September. Yeah. That's being put up as a fund for people to be able to apply to through the Arts Council for people who need money now. So for venues who have landlords demanding rent, who have councils demanding council tax or business rates rather, even though they haven't been open, that fund is for them. We're not in that position at the 100 Club, luckily, so we're waiting for the next lot of funding to be announced over the next couple of days, and that will be, I think, then for venues like us to be able to pay landlords, to be able to pay business rates and utility bills and keep staff on and that kind of thing. But yeah, that initial sum is for venues who don't think that they can survive until the end of September.
You faced the end before in 2010 when times were tough. You talked about closing at the end of the year, and it was those artists that came back. Even Paul McCartney played a show and pleaded with you to keep it open, because while this has been exacerbated by COVID-19, increasing rents year on year, contract on contract, gentrification, venues being replaced by high earning flats, especially in our major cities. This is the clock has been ticking for some time, and it's a really important part of our culture.
I think that's right, and also the other thing is that those flats are then occupied by people who live in spaces that used to be commercial spaces, so you have all the problems with people complaining about noise, and yet we're living in central London, and central London is supposed to be one of the areas like central Liverpool or central Manchester or wherever where you can actually still go out and enjoy yourself. And it got to the point where it became so bad, I was beginning to worry about whether you'd be allowed to actually eat outside, because the sound of crockery and glass and people laughing would be found offensive by some people. So I think there's been a rapid turnaround since then. Actually, I think, thinking about it, with everything that happened and the story that created when we were going to have to shut down, there's no question we were going to have to, and Paul McCartney coming and doing the show to sort of highlight how important the 100 Club and grassroots music venues are. I actually think that was the catalyst for the turning point in which people, authorities mainly, police, licensing, local authorities, where they began to actually realise that these hubs of culture that they have, venues, grassroots music venues, small theatres, wherever, that actually, I think they began to realise that people come to visit, major cities, in our case London, for those very things. I mean, obviously, there will always be people who want to go and see Buckingham Palace and Big Ben and stuff like that, but there's a huge amount of people that I think these authorities have realised attract people to come to London in the first place, which are places like the 100 Club or the Lexington up the road, or places that put on grassroots music venues. Because at the end of the day, all the best gigs I've ever seen, and most people I know, have been in small venues.
Well, on that note, finish, Jeff, by giving me, and this is going to be almost impossible, but I will hold you to it, give me your favourite 100 Club musical memory.
Oh my word. I would say probably the Specials in 2009 when they played their second show after reforming, without Jerry Dammers obviously, and in fact that was the night Michael Jackson died, and that was just one of the greatest gigs I've ever seen. I mean, I've been very fortunate to have seen quite a few there, but that one was amazing, absolutely incredible.
It's so important that Jeff is able to tell a story in 20 years from now about the best gig of the last 20 years. These venues are so important. Jeff, thank you so much for stating the case and doing it with such head and heart. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Colin.
And that's what it's all about, actually. Head and heart. You know, the story that you just see the stat. Over 90% of these venues are in real trouble at closing. That doesn't come back. It's not going to reverse in 5 years from now. All these places that the bands are going to start and won't be there. So you know what they'll do? Get a job. Not pursue their dreams. Not have that money just to make that one demo that might get them signed. For that one person to see them, to move them on. It's so important, that live music arena, and if you say it's a different world of YouTube or not, the live music thing is absolutely integral alongside that. So we're getting so many texts in from the heart side of it, which I love. Clive in Kent saw U2 at Canterbury University in 1980, no more than 40 in the audience. Well, Clive, anything you say, Tom can say better. Tom in Leeds saw U2 in the Merrion Shopping Centre in Leeds in 1981. There was a small club called Tiffany's, which is funny because Tiffany played shopping centres. Do you remember? I think we're alumni, so that kind of ties in. He said, what a night. £3 a ticket. Kenny's only got memories. So his wife and himself, shout out to your wife, by the way, saw Neurosis at the Cockpit in Leeds. Kenny's underestimating me by saying Neurosis are the godfathers of epic crushing post-metal. And for those in the know, I've seen them before, Kenny. I used to follow Slayer about in my teen years. I was a big Slayer fan. It was weird. I'd rave, I'd have me in the haircut, and then I liked my Slayer. So there you go, complex recollection. Anyway, he said it was so good to see them up close and personal. The venue is the Cockpit. The Cockpit is now gone. So this has already happened. The venue's the London Astoria, slightly bigger, gone. That's another story. That was turned into flats because, you know, city centre living and all that. Let's not worry about culture. Rachel's on phoned in. Thank you, Rachel. You're leading the charge. We've got loads of texts coming in, but once we get one caller, it's going to open the floodgates. How are you tonight?
Not too bad, Colin. Not too bad, thank you.
Good. Happy days. Right, now don't tell me the name of the band yet. Right, we're going to build this up. I want the venue and the town.
The Queen's Hall in Bradford.
Right. There'll be someone out there going, I know what she's going to say. Right, what was the year?
I'm thinking it was 1991.
1991, okay. How old were you? Because that's key.
16, 17.
Okay, we will skirt over the fact that that might have been a licensed venue. How much did you pay for a ticket?
Oh, maybe 10 quid. Nothing a lot more than that anyway.
So how many other people were there?
A few hundred. I would say a couple of hundred, 200 or 300.
So 300, tenner a ticket, £3,000 that is. Band probably took 50% of that maybe if they were lucky. So 1,500 to pay the band. What band were getting paid this money to play to you and 299 other people? That right?
It's still the best concert I've ever been to.
So that was
unbelievable.
So that was a straight because I was a huge Pearl Jam fan. So, so 10 was just coming out, right?
The band had just come out. We'd seen them on MTV, Alive, the video for that. I think that was about all we knew about them. The album had just come out, and then we saw there were tickets, myself and my sister, and we said, right, we've got to go. So stood in the queue outside saying, what are we doing? Let's just go home. And nearly did go home because we were so embarrassed to be stood there between all these heavy rockers. But she was cooler than me. I definitely wasn't cool, but once we were in, it was unbelievable. And we were right at the front, right in front of the band, and certainly the best concert we've ever been to.
So I've seen them to 80,000, 90,000. That's the smallest crowd I've ever seen Pearl Jam play to. I'm so jealous. So the two different experiences, aren't they? But like, I love that. And then they become your band, don't they? They're your band. They're not mine. They're yours.
I mean, I've seen them in a big arena as well now. I haven't sort of followed them all the way through. My sister would. She's still a massive fan, but I've sort of lost touch with what they've been doing. But I certainly have seen them in the arena, and that was amazing as well. But to compare the experience, there just is no comparison. And as your other guest was saying, to see any band in a small venue, it just, you know, the experience and the emotion of it is just completely different.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's great. If that's your only opportunity to see them in an arena, fantastic. But
if you want to fall in love with them again with their more recent material, just listen to one track, whatever way you listen to their music. Just Breathe, Pearl Jam. Have a listen to that. One of their more last 5-6 years, however long it is, and it is just the most stunning bit of music. I still love Eddie Vedder to death. Thank you so much, Rachel, and you keep that what sounds like maybe a Bradford Northern Irish accent you're developing there, is that right?
Yeah, I'm from Halifax originally, but I live in County Down now, so...
I can hear it without you telling me. Yeah. Take care, Rachel, that's a love.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you. How's Andrea in Sheffield? You alright?
Yes, I'm good, thank you.
Is this a lead mill story?
No, it's not. I have been to the lead mill, but this is actually a place in Leeds called the Brudenell Social Club. I saw Glenn Tilbrook there only a couple of years ago. I've been a massive Squeeze fan for, probably about 30 years. I've seen him on various different places, and then I just saw it sort of popped up to say that's where he was going to be. It's just him and his guitar, crowd of people, kind of probably a Tuesday or a Wednesday night. It was just a fantastic evening.
How many people?
I would say probably about 200, not many.
See, if you were to see Squeeze in the way up to 200 people, then 1,000, then 2,000, 5,000 festivals, right? And then back down the other way, and then when they get a bit older, and you get to see them again in front of a smaller crowd, they also come with scars. Andrea, they're battle worn, they've lived through it, and all the songs, even the oldest songs, they almost become new again because they retell them, don't they?
Yeah. Well, his voice just is amazing. You know, it was almost like you're listening to the records that you'd been playing when you were in your teens of, Goodbye Girl and Black Coffee in Bed, all that kind of thing. And you just saw him there with his guitar, just singing them from the heart. It was fantastic.
And there's got to be the next Glenn Tilbrook, there's got to be the next Pearl Jam, the next Feeder, the next Annie Lennox. There's got to be these next artists. There's got to be places for them to play, or we're screwed. We lose a huge part of our culture.
Absolutely. I saw Wham on the way up in, I think it was called a Tram Shed in Leeds many years ago.
Yes, it's been all renovated now. No, hold on, I'm getting mixed up with a place in Lincoln. You sure it wasn't in Lincoln?
No, there's one in there was one in Leeds. So I remember seeing Wham, and they rolled down a screen with a projector on and played out to us. We were the first people to see the video for Last Christmas. And it was in that, I was like September time, so it's quite a way before Christmas. But it was fantastic. So, I could say I saw Wham and George Michael in huge venues afterwards, but I could say that I've seen him in the Tram Shed in Leeds. It's brilliant.
All these venues. Thank you, Andrew. You have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. So many is coming in. This one doesn't have a name. Always put your name on. Feel free to tell me something about yourself. Because if I said Colin, I could put Colin Big Ears, for example, which I do have. Anyway, this one says, I saw Feeder at the Fleece in Bristol, supported by 3 Colours Red. Most wonderful gig of my life. And I wish you had put your name in that because we're connected, because I saw exactly that same gig at the Limelight in Belfast, and it was about a quarter full, and it was absolutely sensational. This is amazing. Mark says, I went to see an up-and-coming heavy rock band at the Nashville. Says, I was denied entry because I couldn't prove I was 21. Probably because you weren't, Mark. And he says, I was drowning my sorrows in the pub next door. I was approached by the band's manager, who lent me his driving licence to get into the gig. He says, Rod was a top bloke, and the band did okay as well, as I recalled. They went by the name of Iron Maiden. These are all the memories that come from these sensational venues that are already going out of business, and over 90% think that they can't survive to Christmas Day and need help. So after 11:30, we're going to hear from some of those venue owners, but we're also going to continue to take your calls and texts. 85058 and 08085 909 693 is the number to tell us your story. We're going to talk about the Lead Mill in Sheffield, King Tut's in Glasgow, the Louisiana in Bristol, and also have a few of the artists on to talk to us as well. Hopefully we've sent a few messages out to friends of the show, so we'll see how that goes with us. Arm Meller is from Tokyo Industries, who own many venues, but just last week stepped in to buy Manchester's Deaf Institute and Gorilla. They were facing closure because of the crisis. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Colin. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. I know you've got quite a stable of venues, but how many of them are acquired out of a situation of real desperate need to find a cash injection just to survive?
It's really more about the love of music, really. And when I heard that Gorilla and Deaf Institute were closing, I just felt that Manchester needed those venues, and like the rest of the UK, we need grassroots music venues like these. There's too many not enough opening is the problem. And when I heard these two were closing, kind of a week after the Welly and Hull also closed, I just felt we had to do something about this.
What is it that makes these venues special to you?
It's it's almost like social distancing didn't matter. We run a business which revolves around close social interaction, and there's nothing more social really than seeing a band play in a small venue, and even going to see a band that you've not heard of before who are supporting another band, and you just get into music that way. And you can't replicate that by streaming it and kind of watching on TV. That atmosphere of being in a small room and seeing a really cool band for the first time is incredible.
I know this has happened with you as well, but these artists that have made it big, that see the venues that they've played in trouble and come back to help. We've already heard Jeff from the 100 Club talking about years ago when Paul McCartney played a gig at the 100 Club.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, with Deaf Institute in Manchester, Tim Burgess kind of got on the phone quite quickly and said, we should be trying to do something about this and try and make this work. And we've kind of got together with Tim and concert promoters, SSD Concerts, to kind of to make sure that these venues have got a future. It's going to be quiet for a while until we get rid of social distancing. But I'm hoping that the venues will come back this side of Christmas and we'll then move forward.
I like your optimism. I continue to, every day, I Google COVID-19 vaccine and just read some positive updates. It just helps my state of mind. You take a hell of a risk, though, taking on these venues at the moment. It has to be, from a business point of view, it seems to be as much a heart decision as it is a head iron.
It's massively a hard decision, really. I mean, the next 12-20 months are going to be super tough for grassroots music venues. Ticketing will be a lot lower than it has been, and these venues one of the biggest exports of music globally. That's one of our true kind of passions, and we've got to stick with this. We've got to make sure that the next bands have got a place to play.
Absolutely, billions and billions of pounds it brings in every year. It's over 5 billion, so several million to save that now is actually not just about the music. It's good business sense, and it's good to see some money coming in now, but more is definitely going to be needed. Aaron Miller, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Colin.
Thank you. That's Aaron Miller from Tokyo Industries, Deaf Institute and Gorilla. And you know what? How many venues? We could just keep going. We've all got our own. Be lovely to hear from you. 08085 909 693 on the phone, 85058. They're already piling up. Loads to get through. So let's get the news and sport with Sergio.
On digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
The Foreign Office has updated its guidance about travelling to Spain, advising against non-essential travel to all parts of the country, including the Balearic and Canary Islands. The Spanish Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, has described the UK's decision to reimpose the 2-week quarantine period as unfair. A senior government advisor has suggested that full crowds at sporting events might not be possible until next year. Pilot events have begun testing how fans can return in a socially distant way, with 1,000 people watching a cricket match at the Oval yesterday. More trials are due to take place in snooker and horse racing later this week. And the first case of a pet cat with COVID-19 has been confirmed in the UK. The animal is thought to have caught the virus from its owners. Scientists say they're not sure if pets can pass the disease on to humans. BBC Sport has learnt that Newcastle United's proposed takeover by a Saudi Arabian-backed consortium has been delayed because of a lack of clarity over who would be in charge at the club. 16 weeks after documents relating to a £300 million takeover were registered with the Premier League, the deal is still being scrutinised under its owners and directors test. Fulham have taken control of their Championship playoff semi-final. That's after they won their first leg 2-0 away at Cardiff City. Jurgen Klopp has been named the League Managers Association Manager of the Year after guiding Liverpool to their first top-flight title for 30 years. Leeds United boss Marcelo Bielsa won the Championship award, while Coventry's Mark Robbins and Crewe's David Artell took the respective prizes for Leagues 1 and 2. Emma Hayes was named the FA Women's Super League Manager of the Year award after leading Chelsea to the title. Aston Villa's Gemma Davies took the Championship Manager of the Year. And rain washed out the entire fourth day's play in the third and deciding test between England and the West Indies at Old Trafford. The tourists will begin day 5 on 10 for 2, chasing an unlikely 399-run victory target.
5 Live Breakfast.
It is Monday morning. You don't need me to tell you that, I'm sure. And it's Christian Murphy and Rachel Burden with you this morning. Christian's here all this week. I know you, as our listening audience, will make him feel very welcome.
More on the 2 weeks quarantine for travellers returning from Spain. It's prompted TUI, the UK's biggest tour operator, to cancel holidays to mainland Spain for a few weeks.
It's going to be a big headache for all the different tour operators.
Doesn't everyone need a bit of a change of scene at the moment, even if it's just going to...
Well, that's what I'm doing here. I mean, you know, a change is as good as a rest. Yeah. A little bit of 5 Live instead of going on holiday.
Exactly.
5 Live Breakfast. Back tomorrow from 6. Colin Murray, Monday to Wednesday night on 5 Live.
Welcome back. If you've just tuned in, we've been looking at the real dangers that face the most important small music venues across the nation. And now we're going to celebrate their majesty and hear from some of those who run them. The Lead Mill in Sheffield, King Tut's in Glasgow included. We'll also hopefully hear from some artists who played them, and you can get involved too. Tell me about your magical night when you popped along to see a band who went on to great things. 85058 08085 909 693. You were there from the beginning. Be as smug as you like. Because you know what? They all had to start somewhere.
Spend some time
first big weekend of the all.
The Jam, Superfree Animals, Suede, Arab Strap, and even Tom Robinson. I think that's from King Tut's this little bit as well. Unbelievable. Every band we've ever heard of went through these iconic small venues are in trouble. Let me bring in Rebecca Walker from the Lead Mill in Sheffield. How you doing, Rebecca?
Hi Colin, you alright?
Yeah, thanks for being here. Jeff Ellis, who I know from way back in the day, started off tea in the park, very much a part of King Tut's Wawa and other venues, but definitely wearing the King Tut's hat tonight. Hi Jeff.
Hey Colin, how you doing?
Nice to have you on. What a lineup this is. And Meg joins us from Louisiana in Bristol. Hi Meg.
Hey Colin, how you doing?
Right, you do have a second name. Is it Scalacci, like Toto?
It is, yeah, it's my dad's cousin.
It's your dad's cousin is Toto Scalacci?
Yeah.
Right. You should get government funding for that alone. Let alone anything else. Right, really different stories here, and I just like to just run through them quick, but I want you here for as much your hearts as your head. But Rebecca, the Lead Mill, I mean, how many names are in my head now? So many, so many. I've DJ'd there as well, which is brilliant way back in the day.
Have you?
Yeah. They've done them all really during the Radio 1 days. Lead Mill's amazing. So what's the state of play at the moment?
I mean, we were supposed to be celebrating our 40th birthday this year. We had such an amazing programme that we were so excited to be presenting to the people of Sheffield and South Yorkshire, and it's just kind of all gone to pot really, hasn't it?
It has indeed. We know venues are right on the cusp. A lot of them are right on the cusp of closing. And Jeff from the 100 Club was saying to us, Rebecca, that everyone's in the same boat eventually, you know, because they are smaller venues. But just for anyone's an idea, just run us through some of those names that went through as unknown bands through the Lead Mill.
I mean, the Lead Mill we established in 1980, and through our doors we've had everyone from Pulp, we've had Oasis, we've had Coldplay supporting Muse, we've had obviously Arctic Monkeys.
We've had... How many people bought tickets for Coldplay supporting Muse?
Yes.
How many people were there that night?
I mean, I wasn't there at that event, but that's one of the ones that have gone down in history in the Lead Mill folklore. I think that was a very well attended show at the time. But we had Amy Winehouse supporting Jamie Cullum at one point, and I don't think many people were in to see her, to be fair. And just I wish I was at that gig. I really do.
That's what we mean. Everybody. It's as simple as that, and it crosses all genres of music as well. Victimisation, I would use, and gentrification as well. These are all problems that face music venues as well. Jeff, King Tut's Wawa Hut is dripping with stories. I could give you 7 of my own. So, I mean, the most famous one, of course, is Oasis threatening to burn it down. Is that right?
Well, they didn't quite threaten that, but no, they turned up unannounced with the Sister Lovers when 18-wheeler were playing, and there was only 69 people in the venue, but they asked if they could go on, share the equipment with Sister Lovers, and after a while we said, yeah, we can make that work. So they went on, did half an hour, Alan McGee saw them, and the rest is history, really. So but as well as Oasis, there's been The Killers, Coldplay, Muse, My Chemical Romance, Florence and the Machine, Paloma Faith, Arctic Monkeys, Mumford and Sons, Lewis Capaldi, Paolo Nutini, Calvin Harris, Blur, Biffy Clyro, all of them come through King Tut's in their kind of formative days. Beck played his first ever UK show there.
I've seen the Biff played to so few amount of people in the days. King Tut's one of the places. Belfast, London, beans and toast territory, and I think that's a really important point to make here, Jeff. We talk about the biggest bands going through, but it also supports a particular town and a country's music scene. Bands who go on to do enough to have a career. It's not all about selling a million records. The likes of King Tut's are such important places. That's why I put that clip in there for Mogwai, for Arab Strap, for the absolute heart and soul of for the Pastels, for Bell and Sebastian, the heart and soul of Glasgow.
Yeah, and we do 2 kind of festivals each year in the venue. One called Summer Nights, which we should be going into now, and then New Year's Revolution as well, where we just put on 3 or 4 kind of local bands each night to give them a bit of a lift up, and some amazing artists have come through that. It's a great scene at the moment. Bands like 9 to 8 who are fantastic. Blur as well, which sound like an up-to-date kind of Killing Joke. They're amazing. There's so much great music, and coming out of Glasgow and Scotland, and it should be our job to be putting on those artists and helping them get a rung up the ladder. But at the moment, we can't put anybody on, and haven't been able to since March.
Absolutely. Let's go to Bristol via Bath and Carol. Hiya, Carol. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Lovely to talk to you. Now, your list is huge, but you're going to take me to the Bath Pavilion in the 70s.
Yeah.
So these bands that you saw, I want the band name and how many people you think were there, because there's so many. This is.
Well, it's 5 to 700, probably less.
Yeah.
But it's a big flat space, and now they use it for like roller skating.
Yeah.
Now and again, there's a few kind of tribute bands, and they have a rock and roll night there and everything. It's just a big concrete flat space. And at the time that I saw these bands, Led Zeppelin, T-Rex, and The Who, they were sort of up and coming. And it was like you went in and there was loads of space around you, and then you all sort of slowly graduated towards the front.
Right.
So it was like heaving at the front, but loads of space at the back.
Right, and the band often say,
amazing.
Carol, don't they? The band say, like, I forgot about that moment when you go to a gig to see a band who go on to sell millions of records, or go on to become seminal and influential, like Led Zeppelin have influenced a million bands, where they have to say after the second song, Bath, don't be shy, come down to the front. That moment when you see Led Zeppelin have to tell people to come to the front.
Well, years later, I went to see the film Swan Song, which was a Led Zeppelin film, And I just remember watching that, thinking, yeah, you know, I saw them when they were kind of up and coming, if you
Never
like.
leaves you. Never
No,
leaves you.
it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And but I think of the three of those, T-Rex were actually the ones that I remember more. They were just like very young, very cute, and very lively.
Yeah.
And they were just great, you know. And they sort of looked and sounded as though they were just kind of on their way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where the other two sounded more kind of professional, if you like.
And you got to see them raw. Carol, there'll be a band now in Bristol, just down the road, looking for somewhere to play. They're the next T-Rex, and that's where I'm going to move on to now. And Meg's going to tell us about their fight. Carol, thank you so much for your call.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Thank you.
Recommend Bath Pavilion. We want them.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Meg, we just come down to you, and I mean, I was reading articles about you being a day away from going out of business, and the fans actually of live music were the first to rally around you before this government help is coming now.
Yeah, it was actually
Вот блин. А ведь тут нормальная была бензоколонка. Надо было тут заправляться. Ладно, в будущее буду знать.
And it meant that, yeah, we you know, that's why we're still here now, pretty much. Because of that, you know, really helped a lot.
And it's a stopgap rate.
Probably be about 7 people. So it's like, you know, there's definitely no point even opening our doors until either a vaccine's sorted out or, we'll have to see what happens really.
It's a sliding scale with the venues, and I'm sure Rebecca can hear your voice now and the emotion in it. Meg, are you really relying now between now and there being us moving forward again and being able to actually rub shoulders with each other? Is it government help really, or more miracles?
Well, I think, you know, once we get some more news on the cultural recovery package, I think we'll be able to sort of like, gauge what we can and can't do. But yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know, you know, I mean, music venues aren't just a place for, like, you know, where all these amazing bands like Amy Winehouse and Dua Lipa or whatever, or White Stripes, you know, we're also like quite a strong community thing. I don't know if that's been brought up yet, but it's like, you know, we are the guy from King Tut's mentioned that, you know, we are the foundation for the local music scene, and it's where, you know, without us there isn't any local scene. You know, we are a massive big part of the community as well. So you know, it's not just about the 5.3 billion that, you know, that grassroots or, you know, the music industry generates in the UK. It's also the community thing.
Ты что там, с ночевкой, что ли?
I mean, we've been here for 33 years. And,
какого, блин, дьявола ты там? Тебя что, подтолкнуть, что ли? Давай, езжай уже. А то я тебя уже толкать хотел. Все, проваливай, мужик, проваливай. Все, давай. Время, деньги, мужик. Валяй отсюда.
So, you know, we've had our struggles, but it's what we do. It's our life, you know.
It's great to give it a voice tonight.
Хрена он там взвешивал.
You know, I just want to just come in on one thing there as I go back to
Уснул, что ли, за рулем?
Mill in Sheffield. Here's an idea I think
Паразит
Rebecca make the
такой.
world a better place. If there's a live music venue that is key to a town's culture and its musical culture and its arts, if you build a block of flats after the music venue's built beside it, you can't complain about the noise from the music venue, because I was going to say something I can't say. It's the wrong way round at the moment, that, Rebecca. If the venue's there first, that should take precedent. Don't build a posh flats beside it.
Well, there's been a bill that's been kind of brought in, and it started off in London, and I know they're working to make it a national law, the Agent of Change, where the onus is on the developer after the building has been built or converted. There's a lot, especially in London, and I think this is how it's come about, is that there's a lot of office buildings that are being converted into flats, because obviously there's an ever-growing need for housing in central London. So the onus is on the developers to make sure that is in place. But it closed down the Ministry of Sound, and it was the Ministry of Sound that campaigned tirelessly with the Music Venues Trust to make sure that law was changed. But totally, I mean, the Lead Mill, we sit in the middle, surrounded by student flats and young professional kind of flats, and we do get our fair share of the noise complaints, but we work really closely with our local council, and Sheffield City Council know that we abide by the laws and we abide by the stringent rules that are in place. And luckily, the majority of the people in Sheffield are really behind the Lead Mill and what we do and what we support in the local community.
Yeah. The other point that I want to go back on as well, because it isn't, we point to the bands that come through that have to start in these venues, and I think it is integral, but it's also the biggest night of a young band's career who break up and do something else. A lot of the time because they're crap. Let's just come out and say that, kick straight out. Let's just say that we've all been there. But Jeff, it's also King Tut's, the Lead Mill, the Louisiana, the Limelight, the Joiners, the 100 Club, is where some people have their one moment. Their 15 minutes of rock and roll, right? They got their rider in their dressing room.
half a crate of warm beer down the basement dressing room.
I love it. Let's bring in Simon, and before I'm just going to call you Simon for now, okay? Just one second. Simon, what do you remember of early gigs that you went to in small venues to see bands? Is there one that jumps into your mind, Simon?
I think from being really young, the one that jumps out is I saw Coldplay at the Duchess in Leeds. There was about 25 people there, and all that happened was Chris Martin apologised about his guitar being out of tune, and then they went off stage. That was all I remember of the gig. I don't remember any songs or anything else, just him being very, very apologetic.
So then you were in a band, and then take me to one or two of those venues that your band that did all right, that you played in then, those places that we're talking about.
I think, they're so important, those first gigs. Like, our first gig ever outside of Leeds was in Lincoln, and there was two people, and one of them fell asleep. And it's like... Oh my God, I can't believe it. It was part of I was a different band though, so we didn't have that song just yet, but it's like a learning experience. It's like you have to go and do that, and without people running venues like these venues we're talking about, I can't remember that one in Lincoln, what it was called, the Bivouac, I think. The Welly and Hull, these places where you go, and it's like you learn your trade basically, and without them you can never progress.
Yeah, because I mean the Kaiser Chiefs have refined their live art. If I think of the last time I'd have seen the Kaiser Chiefs up against the first time, it was a different show, and I don't think a lot of people aren't musical. It's only through our industry sometimes you know the difference between when you're standing within 3 yards of each other and then when you're having to go on a stage that's 40 yards wide. It is refining the art, learning the stagecraft and all of that. And is it a bit like, Simon, when you go into these sweaty comedy clubs and you'll get heckled in a second, is there a bit of that to it as well? It's like, proper being dragged up into the live music scene.
Oh, definitely. I always think that playing at some main stage at Glastonbury to wherever that is nowadays, 100,000 people, is actually easy because you don't see the people's faces really. It's a mass of people and everyone's having an amazing time. When you play to 50 people and you can see 40 of them walk out, they're only going to the toilet or they're going to the bar, or they're not actually leaving, but you can see every single person and what they're doing and how they're reacting to the songs, and it's frightening.
Yeah. What is the best venue under 500 you've ever played?
So hard. I mean, I have to go for Bleaknell Social Club because it's my local. Yeah. And I love it. And one of the big things is that about small venues is we still play them because we love it. So we played Bleaknell Social Club when our album came out, and it was one of the best gigs of the year, because it's a great atmosphere, friendly atmosphere. And, for me, my family are there, but it's where you're sort of the only people there are core fans, real people who love your band, so they're always amazing nights. So I'd say Broodnell is my favourite, but there's so many. It's great.
And just so you know, we're not on here being sensationalist. You've lived through it. If they all went, which over 90% at the moment are in trouble. If they went, how do you come through as a young kid?
Well, it's so important to have them because I think, as I say, you need them for bands. You know, aspiring bands need them. I think bands who have like made it, inverted commas, also need them because I think you can still go back and play small shows to like play new songs and things like that. But most importantly, I think, is a hub. So I used to work in a venue which is actually closed called Joseph's Well. It's the main thing about Joseph's Well was there was a gig room in which I was going to say, because I was listening earlier, my favourite gig we ever put on was The Killers, but they were first on before British Sea Power, so that was my favourite. So there's a gig room, but the main thing was the bar. Because it was a venue, all the musicians, we all used to hang out there on days off, and so you know, have creative ideas and collaborate and just talk about things, you know, borrow guitars, all sorts of stuff, all the things that you need as a musician. So it's the community, it's the hub, it's everything, you know, and that's what's so important about music venues. It's not literally the people playing music's important, but actually the atmosphere around it is just as important.
Simon, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It was so important to have the artist's voice on tonight. I really appreciate you taking time out to do that. Thank you.
No problem.
Cheers. Simon from the Kaiser Chiefs joins us right here on BBC Radio 5 Live. Jeff Ellis from King Tut's. I asked this question earlier. How important is it for fans, even though they're not checking in to see when the gigs are going to be and when things can reopen, to stay in touch with these venues, to try and help where they can?
It's really important because, as somebody else said, the grassroots venues are part of the local community, and they contribute a lot from a cultural point of view, as well as supporting the nighttime economy. So yeah, it is important to show that love to your local venue. And we've been going, it's our 30th anniversary for King Tut's this year. Not that we're celebrating it much, obviously, but it's important to keep in touch and support them where you can. I mean, we can't open at the moment because we're at 2 meters social distancing would be 6 people literally, and at 1 meter would be 40 people. So you just can't put on a concert with those kind of conditions. Even when the Scottish Government is saying that social distancing will be in place until there's a vaccine. So that could be kind of March, April next year at the earliest, perhaps. And so it is. It's vitally important to keep supporting your local venue however you can. And one good thing that happened up here with the Scottish Government, you mentioned, somebody else mentioned the Agent of Change, that was brought in as planning law a couple of years ago by Scottish Government. So that at least has protected venues up here from residential developments.
So Rebecca, you get the perfect seat, don't you, I suppose, to see all these coming through. What is your fondest memory so far of the Leadmill? How many years have you been involved at the Leadmill?
This would have been my 10th year I've been at the Leadmill now, working on booking team, and God, there's too many memories to even remember. I think one really outstanding one was probably when we had Royal Blood do their Halloween show, and they put out a tweet saying we want everyone to come dressed as skeletons, and I swear about 90% of people turned up dressed up as skeletons, and the label sent them a coffin from a local undertaker, and Mike got carried across the audience, and it was phenomenal. It was just one of those gigs where you had to be there, and it kind of goes down in history. But just echoing what King Tut's is saying, it's like you need to be supporting your local venues. I mean, at the Leadmill at the moment, we're okay at the moment. We're taking each government announcement as it comes, but there's a lot of smaller venues out there that we work with directly, because we don't just program events at Leadmill. We program all over Sheffield, and we program in little 100 capacity venues, and if we lose them, the progression line just gets cut right at the bottom. And not everyone goes to see bands at venues. I get that. Some people like to see the occasional thing at an arena, but everyone listens to the radio, everyone listens to streaming services, everyone watches movies where music is being played. And the fact of the matter is, all of this music gets essentially started at these low-level venues where musicians write their songs, they meet their mates, they see a band for the first time and pick up a guitar. And if you lose these venues at the bottom, we're really going to be in trouble.
We've had cautious optimism as well from those people like yourselves that are ensconced that the government are listening, which is good. Ewan and Bethnal Green says Kings of Leon, Gloucester Leisure Centre back in 2004. Do you know what I'll do? I'll carry some of these texts and tweets over into the next hour, be able to talk about it as well. But I tell you what we're going to do to finish. Rebecca, Jeff and Meg, we're going to bring in Mark in Newcastle for one more story that proves these venues must survive. It's Tiffany's that I mentioned earlier in Newcastle. How you doing, mate?
Hello, Colin, you alright?
Good, yeah, we got about a minute. Tell me everyone you've seen in there.
Well, I mean, the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds was the one at Tiffany's, which I think was about 150 people in. Well, it was their first tour when Nick had changed from being happy in the birthday party, and so it was a load of goths who didn't know what the hell was going on. To be honest with you, it was a really
He's my
strange
god.
night.
He's my absolute god, Nick Cave. Yeah.
Absolutely. But like I say, it was a strange night because the crowd didn't know what to expect. I don't think they'd heard what the Bad Seeds were. They'd heard the birthday party.
So then there's the Riverside in Newcastle. That's now gone at the moment. But who did you see there?
Well, I mean, the Pixies as a support band sticks out. The Pixies were there supporting a band called Throwing Muses, and they just came on and blew everyone away. They were fully formed by that point, they were ready to go, and even the Throwing Muses, who were the headline for the night, just stood and applauded. They were amazed.
I love that.
But
Listen, we're out of time now, but Nirvana, The Smiths, Billy Bragg, Sonic Youth, Stone Roses. That was a brilliant click. Could have went on to 1 o'clock. We'll do the lock-in next. Thanks to Rebecca, Jeff and Meg. That was our live music look.
On digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
BBC News at midnight, this is Adam Porter. The Spanish Prime Minister has said the UK's decision to impose a 2-week quarantine on everyone arriving from Spain was unjust. Pedro Sanchez said his government was in talks with British ministers to reverse the restriction. Mr. Sanchez said British tourists were safer from coronavirus in most regions of Spain than they were at home.
I insist the error in my judgment, and hence the lack of alignment to the United Kingdom's response, is based on considering the cumulative incidence of the entire country, because I insist 64.5% of the new cases registered are in 2 territories. In most of Spain, the incidence is very much inferior to even the numbers registered in the United Kingdom.
The UK has updated its advice against all non-essential travel to Spain to include the Balearic and Canary Islands. The guidance had initially excluded any restrictions on travel to islands such as Ibiza and Tenerife. The head of the World Health Organization says the COVID-19 pandemic is the most serious health crisis the organization has ever faced. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said the world had made enormous efforts to suppress the virus. There remained a long, hard road ahead. Imogen Folks reports.
The World Health Organization has battled diseases like Ebola and HIV/AIDS. These are far deadlier in terms of mortality rates than COVID-19. But they did not bring the world to a standstill, risk millions of job losses, and send millions of children home from school. This is why the WHO says this health crisis is worse than any previous one. Until the virus can be properly controlled, normal life cannot resume, the global economy cannot restart.
Data from the National Police Chiefs Council has shown that young men from ethnic minority groups were twice as likely to be fined for breaching lockdown laws than their white counterparts. The report analysed more than 17,000 fixed penalty notices imposed between March and May in England and Wales. Lewis Hamilton has issued a statement confirming he's not against vaccines after sharing a video linked to conspiracy theories about COVID-19 vaccinations on Instagram. The Formula One world champion posted an interview with Bill Gates with a tagline questioning his truthfulness, but said he hadn't actually seen the comment attached. The singer Denise Johnson, whose voice was synonymous with the Manchester music scene, has died at the age of 56. She featured on records by the likes of New Order, Johnny Marr and the Charlatans, and is best known for providing the lead vocals on Don't Fight It, Feel It, which appeared on Primal Scream's Mercury Prize-winning Screamadelica album. And the weather forecast, a cooler night with most of the country becoming dry, although there'll be some showers in Scotland. BBC News, it's 3 minutes past midnight.
5 Live Sports, the FA Cup final.
Two clubs steeped in silverware, both with a whole who's who of heroes, both trying now to make memories of their own.
Arsenal versus Chelsea.
Aspilicueta's cross, Giroud, and it's gone in! Aubameyang with a free run, Aubameyang with a second goal.
It's on.
We will have a derby in the FA Cup final.
The FA Cup final, Saturday at 4:30 on BBC 5 Live and iPlayer.
Welcome back to BBC Radio 5 Live. This is the Colin Murray Show, Monday to Wednesday, 10:30 to 1 a.m. Important to tell you that. And between 12 and 1 for the time being, we gather a group of wonderful people around the table, invite you to sit alongside us, and we chat about whatever comes to mind. Just before I introduce today's table, I was a bit acute to 12 o'clock. We have to go at 12, no choice in the matter. I want to just thank you all for contributing to our chat about the importance of our iconic live music venues that not only provide these amazing moments for bands that never go any further, but it's their 15 minutes of fame that one night, but also it's the springboard for every artist we've ever loved. And we take these memories of seeing them in these small venues for the rest of our lives. They become our bands, and they're in such trouble at the moment. The government have put money into them as part of this arts package, you know, the 1.7 billion one or 1.5. Many texts, so I just want to do a few more quickly. The Barfly in Camden, 500 people watching this band. They were amazing, but sounded like a bunch of Americans just trying to sound like UK 80s. It was the Killers just before Hot Fuzz dropped. I love that. Do you know what was funny about when I first saw the Killers, and it was in a small venue as well? I was like, something about the lead singer's very cabaret, and then when I found out about when it came big, the first gigs they ever saw was in Vegas. So Brandon Flowers has that whole Vegas vibe about him all the time when he's performing. I'll read more out to my guests. I may as well do that and bring everybody in except for Neil Delamere, whose internet isn't working at the moment. Please welcome back Jake Yap. How you doing, Jake?
I'm all right, thanks.
You go. Yeah. Look, you just love a man that has so many microphones that he's got a stack of about 40 of them behind him.
It's all compensating. Yeah, that's an avalanche of musical instruments waiting to drop.
Right, and it's
the trombone.
Do you know what you look like? Look like you ran a shop that went out of business during the coronavirus and you had to put all the stock into your house.
That's exactly right.
And please welcome making her debut, Grania Maguire. How you, Grania?
Hey guys, how are you?
You're wonderfully you're after my own heart here, because I sit in the semi-darkness as well for the lock-in, and you're in a very similar sort of like darkened room, fairy lights, rather than, you know, a defunct shop.
I'm trying to create like the atmosphere, the Glastonbury festival atmosphere for this evening.
It's done it for me. It's done it for me. And I want to just say that our musical act for this week, playing every night of the lock-in, were booked before they were nominated for Mercury Music Prize. It wasn't as if a couple of days ago we looked down the list and we went, who can we get? Who can we get? It was booked ages ago, Alex Rice from Sports Team, correct?
Hello, you're right.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it was ages ago. I mean, the Mercury's been a massive surprise, but
right.
Yeah, so very happy to be here.
Did you discover this? How many of the band are with you, by the way?
It's just Rob. Me and Rob had just got back from the pub.
Happy days.
Was it the Dog and Bells we were at, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the virtual pub format was sort of pretty thought up during lockdown, but now you can go back, which is great.
And you're the only one with the microphone, so it's a bit of a Jay and Silent Bob situation.
Yeah, exactly. He's got his
headphones
on, but he'll have quite a delay on it, I'd imagine. So like anything that comes out is a bit dicey.
Yeah,
you'll see the horror 5 minutes in.
Yeah, it just makes it a bit awkward. I'm all for it, Rob, though. It just makes it a bit awkward. Did you discover, Alex, that you were nominated for the Mercury by reading it online, or was it a frantic call that you got, or how did that work out?
We got a message from our manager, I think it was last week, and we honestly, we didn't think we'd get it at all. We had no clue. But then I sort of like, you realise you had the shortlist in your hands a week before as well. So you were trying to sort of milk some of the betting odds online and got posted sort of a bit of a prediction a couple of days before. It was like, yeah, he's got a good ear, this lad, you know? So when I predicted the full shortlist a couple of days out, we told everyone, they told you not to tell everyone, we like ran into the street, went to our local pub called the Nag's Head across the road, like proper Irish pub, trying to like spend all night trying to explain to these people the significance of the Mercury Awards.
Yeah.
None of them had a clue.
Yeah, but that's the key, you see. It doesn't matter. Actually, it used to be, I think it still is, but Grania, this is not like a rewarding you for brilliance, you know. It's people sitting down in the room and saying these albums are really important. It's never based on sales. There's something really pure about it, Grania, isn't there? It's a bit like when it's comedians that say you're funny, you know.
Is it like the Smash Hits Bowl Winners Party?
It's exactly.
That's the only music award that I recognise.
Exactly like that. Exactly like, no, it's exactly the opposite. But on saying that, I took my wee sister once to the Smash Hits Bowl Winners Party, you know, during my really one days, because she was a big Busted fan. So I took her there, and then Chris Eubank was there with his kid, because his kid was a big Busted fan as well. So my sister and his kid sort of did the kind of like, you know what 8-9-year-olds do. And I think it was Chris Eubank Jr., the boxer, right? I think it was. But, I can't say for sure, because I didn't pay much attention. It was just Chris Eubank's kid running about and these other kids. But I do think Chris Eubank Jr. and my sister, as kids, watched Busted at the Smash Hits Bowl Winners Party. But he'd probably break my face if he sees me for saying that. We've done loads of these messages here. I'm just going to read a few more out, and then I'd love to get your sort of small venue live music experience, both from a band's point of view and just from being there as a punter. But James says, I threw my only ever sickie from Pizza Hut in 1995. I was 17 to go to a gig at the 100 Club. I went to see Tom Hingley from the Inspiral Carpets. The surprise headliner that night, we knew there was one, we didn't know who it was going to be. Noel Gallagher. Nice.
He was their roadie, wasn't he?
He was for a while, yes. He was, so that's exactly why he would have went back to do that. He was the roadie. Who said that?
It's me. I'm the brains.
Alex,
I'm the brains in this chat.
You're absolutely the brains of the lock-in tonight. He says the next year was delivering pizzas in Stevenage, fighting through the crowds, coming back from Oasis at Nebworth. And he lives in Sheffield now, and he says, I just pray the lead mill survives everything that's going on. Adrian in Cheltenham says, my wife and I saw Linkin Park in Birmingham, Tampa, and then Birmingham again over 8 years span. Last time, 2017, turned to be our last ever concert as well. So seen him play throughout all the different venues. Jake, what's yours? What's your music memory you can brag about?
Do you know, it's funny, I was thinking about music awards, because the only experience I've got was I once wrote some links for a music awards. It was the NME Music Awards, and I think it was the first ever one. And I wrote some stuff for Zoe Ball, who was presenting it, and it was catastrophic because I sort of wrote all these little jokes, and I thought they were all really nice. And then we got there, and it was a bun fight, man. I mean, everyone was off their heads.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, Liam Gallagher was there. And it's the only time I saw him. And they were just, everyone was like heckling, and I just watched. It was Zoe Ball, I think, and Jamie Thigpen, and they just here's the next award, and they were like, we just need to get through this as fast as we can because this is going to get ugly really fast.
So it wasn't that your gags went down badly, it's just they didn't do them.
Yeah, no, it was exactly that. And I replicated that at the World Music Awards years later as well. I wrote the script for that.
I wrote some link jokes for the BAFTA Awards this year.
Did you?
It was so mental. It was so mental. It was so hard. Eventually I gave up and just started Googling funny quotes about acting. And then, because we were in the green room while the awards were going on, and I'd been talking to one of the writers, kind of taking the piss about how bad all my link jokes were. And then Scarlett Johansson, just after that, Scarlett Johansson read out, Oscar Wilde says acting is like the real life, only, Whittier. And as a joke, I said to my friend, I wrote that. And Kristen Scott Thomas was right beside us at the time. And she turned to me and went, I thought they were supposed to be funny. And then she walked off.
Oh no!
Gosh,
why would you go? Like, why would you go though? Like, if I wrote gags, I wouldn't want to be there. Like, you don't want to be there in case like it falls flat. Everyone's looking at you. So I was
they
just
also
watch from
had a lot of free champagne and alcohol.
Okay. That makes sense. You went for the alcohol, and you've just admitted that, so that's not a problem whatsoever. What about? Have you seen any bands on the way up, Grania? That then went on to be huge.
And in 1996, I think it was, I saw Oasis support REM.
Right.
And it was at Slane, because Slane Castle is just round the corner from where...
That's your local venue?
That's my local venue, right. Slane Castle.
110,000 people.
And I remember going back to school in September being like, guys, there's this new band called Oasis, and they're going to be really good.
I was at that gig. I was there. I was at that Slane.
It was amazing.
REM were all right. I wasn't at the right age to appreciate REM, so I was more into Oasis. Alex, you played so many places that we're talking about tonight, and in recent history, it's so vivid in your mind the importance of all of these venues, from Joiners to Leadmill, from whether you're in Bristol or you're in Glasgow, these iconic venues that you go in and sort of carve your name into their history.
Yeah, and it's huge for the bands as well. Like, it's the first time you get really giddy. Like, for so long, our dream as a band was just to play the Old Blue Lass, like a little pub in Shoreditch.
Yeah.
And we're doing that for the first time round. You get giddy the first time you get a rider, you know, and you carve your name on the wall. You sort of see the bands, and you start dressing really. I dress like a pirate for these first gigs. Because I asked what rock stars look like. Like, put your sunglasses on, you go and like get your mum's blouse for it and things. And it's just brilliant. They're the best thing in the world, because I think you realise when you play slightly bigger venues, you've got to perform. I heard you talking about it before, but you've got to perform them completely differently. It's not about intimacy anymore. It's about sort of showmanship, and it's about like the kind of performance in the theatre and trying to be a hero up there, you know. But when there's kind of 200 people in the room, you almost know every single one. And you meet people as well. Like, for us as a band, it's been huge just sort of building the community around it. I think in the UK, at the moment, you've lost a lot of the sort of more traditional sources of community. Whatever it was sort of working men's club. Crucial, and like to mention a few more venues, the sort of Elsewhere in Margate that we always feel really attached to, and the Windmill in Brixton just down the road from us, that they're in a bit of trouble, but a bit of huge shame if they got lost.
Yeah, there's so many of them, and you're doing it sort of an extra fast time. How's this sort of, I suppose it's not even happened yet, I suppose it's just going to be this next 3-4 weeks, everyone's going to have an opinion in your record now.
I think so. It's slightly terrifying, isn't it? Because as you say, there's a massive difference between sort of having a popular record, which I hope we did, like number 2 in the charts and everything. Yeah. We were shocked by. But then, as you said before, it's Mercury feels like sort of acclaim from your peers. I think it's kind of music obsessives like us. Like, we didn't form a band because I wanted to be the most popular band in the world. We formed a band because we sat around in rooms and listened to like Pavement B-sides. We were sort of weird kids that like music that no one else liked. And to get recognition from people that feel like yourself is unbelievable.
It is funny, isn't it, how our age will determine how we listen to a record, right? So when I listened to your album for the first time, Pavement was the most obvious reference for me straight away. But you know, if the average person buys your album as 18, 19, 20, they're not going to hear that. It is true that it is like, you have to allow younger people like Alex to be inspired by the bands that were around when I was 18. Otherwise, you just become an old curmudgeon.
We had a lot. We got a song about Ashton Kutcher on our record. If any of you remember that show, Punk'd, he used to do. It was brilliant. It was so cruel. Like, if you ever see what he did to Justin Timberlake's life, he destroyed it just for gags on TV. It was really, really good stuff. And we had all our fans be like, here's Ashton Kutcher. I thought he was just that guy from the memes. And they were like, we're only in our mid-20s. It's like, God.
You get old quick enough. We're going to talk a bit more about the record a little bit later. We're glad to welcome Neil Delamere, who really shouldn't have any technical issues because he's been in here about 40 times. So what's going on there, Neil? Is there a storm?
I've no idea. I turned off the router, I changed my computer, I put my finger up Elon Musk's bum and pressed his belly button at the same time, and that seemed to have reset the whole thing, and that's fine. So I think we're good to go now.
Good. Well, we kind of are. You have a delay that is the equivalent of the delay when they tried to contact the Portuguese jury in the 1987 Eurovision Song Contest. And please don't reply to what I just said, because we're not going to hear it until Dot Not a Bio's show, just after 1 o'clock. We're not going to hear that at any stage. I want to have we'll move on from live music for a bit. I just want to have a bit of a rant about something, and who's petty enough in this bar, or virtual bar, to probably join me. I think you, Jake Yap. I think you'll get this right. Did you see the story today about the cat that got COVID? Right. So, and everyone's like, what? Have animals got COVID now? Is that what it is? The animals get COVID? Did people feel that cats had just been better at social distancing than human beings for the past 6 months? Was it that people's thought process not think straight away, well, it's obviously a rare exception, because otherwise, if it was as contagious with animals, there would be millions of animals with it? Or Jake, when people read that, because it seems to be what a lot of people thought, did they think that cats, dogs, foxes and other animals were really good at social distancing, and then as the lockdown eased, they just became lazy? They started going to cat beaches.
Yeah, I saw that footage of Cat Eastbourne. I mean, it was just unbelievable on the cat beach there. I mean, it's horrendous because you know what happens with cats in sand. Right. The smell was incredible.
But cats do wash their hands. Cats are always washing their paw.
With what? Lick!
That's what helped well.
Yeah, but they lick them. That's exactly it. You can't advise
people. You've got 9 lives, you're going to be a bit more.
Yeah. They're disposable, aren't they? Yeah.
You're enjoying the fact that this is really delayed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I would have thought dogs would get it first, because dogs are, right up there, aren't they? In the park, there's no social distancing there. Cats, I would have put down as the last animals to contract it.
No. I just sometimes I think that in the crazy world that we live in right now, that sometimes logic doesn't seem to follow, in terms of this sort of idea that they've been secretly hiding, that all the animals have it in their hundreds of thousands. And it just in my head couldn't help but think, did people feel that they were better at social distancing before? That's all I wanted to say. These type of things annoy me, Grania.
Well, we're all dealing with lockdown in different ways.
Right.
So if you want to shout at cats, shout at cats.
Yeah. But Neil started it. Neil's obsessed with animals. I'd probably rephrase that, but he talks a lot about his dog's been through the worst lockdown of any animal, really. He's went through all sorts. Do you have an update for us, Neil?
Yes, I do have an update, because we're fostering the dog, and as soon as normal life continues, we're going to have to give him up. So 2 people came to the house and the dog was assessed, and they're going to take him away from us, Colin, and I'm heartbroken. Absolutely.
It's harrowing, isn't it, when you lose a dog? It's the worst thing in the world.
I forgot to tell you this, right? He eats everything in the house, right? But he still manages to look great when he does it. I fell asleep the other day, and I had these on the couch, and I had these really weird dreams, and I started hearing all these weird noises and different voices, and like, welcome to the 6 o'clock news, and this is what's on humming away, and all this stuff. And I woke up, and the dog was eating the remote control and randomly changing television stations on the TV. I'm not saying he did it on purpose, but he had recorded Super Vet, which seems to be a level of intelligence that is very respectable, right? So my wife ran in, and she goes, "What's the dog doing?" And I was like, well, he's eating the remote control. But the good thing is, I got it off him, because this was a couple of weeks ago. This was mid-lockdown. He's a young dog. If he had swallowed the remote control, what am I going to do? Because, like, you wouldn't get another remote control. All the TV shops were probably closed, so
surely
you
you
probably
just have
to go with it.
Wouldn't you just have to, like, palpate the dog's abdomen if he'd swallowed it?
I'm thinking you'd have to just have to flick with the nipples to try to get BBC 4. I mean, I think you'd have to. Your wife, why are you pointing a beagle at the television? Oh, because I'm trying to get the football scores. Leave me alone. Why does he look nervous? Because there's only one way to change the batteries, and he knows what's coming next. But he's going to be taken away from me, Jake. That's what's going to happen.
Don't go back to the sad bit. Stick to the comedy. We know that all comedians are crying inside anyway.
Inside, you say.
But Neil, did he really record a vet program? Was that
he recorded
that's the one
Supervet.
program that he? Well, that can't be a coincidence, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, but what are we suggesting here? That he's looking for a way out, or that he just wants to check in on how things are going? Maybe he knew the cat was going to get COVID. Maybe he's ahead of us all, Colin. Who knows?
Is anyone? I don't watch any medical dramas, so that's how I'm conditioned. I don't want to watch things about illness because then I feel I've got it. So I don't all of them, Casualty, whatever. I cannot watch them, and I don't get in my head why people. But of course people do it in their millions.
Do you not like the first bit of Casualty where you have to play guess the accident? Because it's never the immediate thing. There's a guy climbing up a ladder while carving a turkey, and like a schoolboy error is someone who goes, well, he's going to stab himself in the face with that, or he's going to fall off the ladder, and then suddenly he gets hit by lightning. That's the best thing about Casualty.
Never watch him.
I like trying to reverse engineer the wounds. You know, I'm like, that's bacon, ketchup, a little bit of miso, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, kind of work out what they're using for the.
Well, it's always very simple as well. Dexter's a big show of mine. Did anyone watch Dexter? Is anyone a fan of Dexter? Love Dexter. Yeah. Alex Rice, are you too young for Dexter, or have you watched that series?
I think I am, I'm afraid.
You just missed it.
I was told, my manager texted me, it was like this current affairs program, you know, I read up on South American revolutions before bed. You go, the first question's cat with COVID. It was a wasted afternoon.
The second half of this show is about the Sandinistas. You were going to love
it. Yeah, I thought I was on with a Nick Ferrari figure or something like that.
No, this is very much the laid back, just whatever. Sometimes it can be very serious, Alex, the lock-ins, and sometimes it can be all over the place, just whatever comes up. There's no script whatsoever, which is good. The only thing we know is we're going to hear music from Sports Team, which is going to be really good, but nothing else. But Dexter is a serial killer with a conscience, which is my favourite type, and he cuts their faces, right, with a knife, and I watched it. It's so simple how they do it, you know. He literally just has a little thing. He squeezes behind the knife. It just leaves a little line, and once you know that and you watch it, cute. Every time he does it, really, really good. But you know, I don't know about these things. Grania, what's happening in your world?
I'm sorry. I'm so squeamish.
Right.
Like I can't anything with like blood. Whatever it makes her. I just lost the line on Wikipedia and I do love to then talks about it.
Tell you what we'll do after this is one of those gremlin nights where I want to pick the microphone up and just chuck it at the wall. So let's just reconnect the Grania. Jake, what's going on in your world? This is a bar table. You lead the conversation.
Well, I've sort of started jogging again. I don't say that with anything other than a deep sense of shame, but I've sort of been enjoying it. I started this app. I don't know if I can name the app, but it's really good. And it's got like coaches, and so you go for a run, and there's this voice in your ear saying, you know, stop crying, or whatever. But it's actually like, well, the thing is, it's like this sort of like this running thing, and
it's not your conscience.
Hang on. It says, go to
Does
Paris.
Does it have your voice?
Joan. Yeah, it tells me I've got to go and save the inspirational, saying you're an athlete, and I'm like, you have not met me. I'm not an athlete, and I'm sort of sitting there going, okay, fine. But then the guy says, we're gonna do this, and you know what? It's gonna be great. And do you know why? Because you're a beast.
Yeah.
And it made me laugh out loud in the park. You know, sort of jogging along, wondering if I'm having an aneurysm, and get told I'm obese, and I just didn't see it coming. And it was like, I was on side. I just needed one joke, and suddenly I just want to please this person. You know what I mean? I was just like, how can I make you happy? Okay, I'll run. And it's really worked.
Why are you doing it?
Well, because obviously I take very seriously every piece of messaging that comes down from the governments.
Oh, right.
Well, I mean...
Yaps law.
But there was, you know, we knew about the sort of link between obesity and you know, what would happen if you got COVID. And so I did think, well, you know, maybe I should do something about this now.
And then when you get home after the jog, like, do you eat healthy, or is it a light?
No.
Is it,
well,
you know,
yeah.
Because that's what a lot of people do. They run and then have a pizza.
Yeah. Well, it said on this app thing, it said you need to get home, you need to hydrate, and you need to refuel. So I got home, melted like 2 or 3 tubs of margarine and deep fried a packet of fags, and after a run they just taste amazing.
You feel like you've earned them.
You've earned the deep fried cigarettes, you know.
Alex, tell me the sports team, are they young, careless, up to no good, or do you fall into what many bands do of the modern era, where fitness is part of being in the band, which never happened? They never met a fit band, by the way. The only thing that kept bands fit before the year 2000 was drug addiction. That's the only thing made them skinny. Nothing else, and I'm not condoning it.
Yeah, it's a real mate. I've been running as well. Me and Ollie run in the morning, and I'll be taking the 6-pack in 30 days team to court at some point in my life. But that was the app I downloaded, equally motivational. But like, I don't know, I think we all thought, because we all live together, like we're all in a house in South London, I think we all thought we'd be living this kind of like bohemian dream, you know, where we were sort of drug-riddled and slept on a mattress in the corner with needles around us, but I think we've just made it into some kind of young professional hell, you know? Like everyone's got overnight oats in the fridge. It's horrible. I'm trying to sort of shake people out of it. When we're not on tour, it's so tough. It's very hard to know if you're very sad lads. But yeah, we're trying our best to be rock and roll, you know?
But if you're living like that, Alex, does that mean that there's a group of accountants somewhere and they're just off their faces smoking meth in a caravan somewhere, talking about their favourite spreadsheets? Oh yeah, do you remember when the stapler used to come out and give you tips? Windows 95.
I mean, if they probably live nearby, they sound like our neighbours, to be honest. I think they're pretty cooler than us. But like, we managed to blend it quite well. I think it's hard living, but there's always a run in the morning, you know. But I think we're young enough that we don't need much sleep. But it's hard to motivate yourself as well. I think we miss live a lot. We miss playing live shows more than you can imagine. Like that's always the thing that's hard, because you realise we played I think 150 live dates last year, and it is like you go on stage and it's ecstasy for an hour, like metaphorical ecstasy. But then you like, how do you replace that when you can't do it anymore? When every other night of your life you've been going and doing that, and you go out in front of 5,000 people and you go around the world with your mates and get adored for it. It's the best thing in the world.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's trying to find something healthy that fills that. And I think the 5k jog isn't quite it yet. So you've still got to replace a bit, but at least you fill up some of the tank.
I gotta say, Alex, while people will say of younger artists, and they'll say, oh, they're not rock and roll these days like they used to be. Well, so they shouldn't be, because there's a thing that people do with sex, drugs and rock and roll, Grania, is they always do the same thing. They point to the Rolling Stones, for example, and they go, look, they're still alive. Like the fact that 4 of them survived from that whole era is a reason for everyone else. Nobody ever points to all the people who were finished at 50 and rock and roll killed them by 60. They just hold up 1 or 2 people, Grania, and go, well, there you go, that's proof of it. It would be like if, like if 50 people fell off a cliff and 1 person survived. Well, there you go, falling off a cliff's absolutely fine. Because, so it's just like everyone always goes, look at Ronnie Wood, that's all you need to do. Look at Keith Richards. It's nonsense, Grania, it's nonsense.
You've got social media now as well, your mums can see it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the worst thing is, if ever you Google, like, for any length of time, anybody in the Rolling Stones, and like their personal life, it's like oh, harrowing. It's like, and then they were married to this woman.
Ну что ж, на этом стриме, посвященный Idaho, завершен. Спасибо всем, кто смотрел, слушал и также обонял и осязал, если есть такие. С Айдахо мы закончили, но это еще не значит, что мы закончили с грузовиками и со всеми этими делами. Пока шел ивент, я немного забросил евро, поэтому скоро, на днях, я думаю, я к нему вернусь. Но я хочу сначала докачать до 20 уровня и здесь, чтобы уже купить нормальный грузовик. Это тот, что у меня есть, меня, само собой, не устраивает. Так, ну, все. Всем спасибо. Я пошел спать. Чего и вам желаю.